bringing data from one entity to another is usually not that easy as it should be. So what we are trying to achieve in Atlas is to increase the interoperability between machine, sensors, and data services. That's very briefly summarized. Yeah, how we are going to do this is that we need a standardized and extensible interface for data exchange. So we see interoperability as the ability to exchange data between all the entities involved. And what we also are trying to achieve is that we have a full control over the data through the farmer. So what we have done so far in Atlas is that we developed this interoperability architecture. We are currently at a state where we can already do some first implementations of this architecture. So the concepts here are that we have trusted and autonomous participants, a minimum of centralized components, and that we are realizing a data exchange through dedicated connectors, which we call services. In this architecture, we have basically two concepts for data exchange. We have a data platform-based exchange and processing, which you can see here. And we are also addressing onboard computing, on-site computing, edge computing, and processing capabilities, which are then also interconnected to the whole network and also can exchange data to the platform-based, cloud processing-based participants of the network. All the architecture is designed along concrete use cases and was developed in a collaborative development process between industry partners, software developers, and agricultural service providers. We are addressing multiple sensors and data analysis functionalities in Atlas. You see here a brief overview of what we are doing in the respective work packages. Looking at the time, I will not go into much detail about this. We are also dealing with hardware development. Here to mention the Multisensor-Box, which is integration of multiple sensors in one box, so to say, which can be attached to an agricultural machine using the standard connectors and also the standard connectors for exchanging data with the machine. As I said, we have multiple farms as part of the consortium. We have in total 13 agricultural operations available to the consortium, where all kinds of fruits, arable are planted, and also livestock farming is a major part in that setup. These farms are part of the pilot studies, which are distributed all over Europe. And we defined a multitude of use cases, which will be then demonstrated on these pilot test sites. We have the classical precision farming approaches, but we also are dealing with irrigation, with soil analysis, with livestock behavior analysis, and also multi-vendor fleet management and asset tracking. So to summarize it, Atlas is trying to achieve a new level of interoperability between machine, sensors, and data services. What we have so far is a reference architecture with a minimal amount of centralized central components. We are currently working on concrete implementations to have some first demonstrators ready as soon as possible. So that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very, very much for that, Stefan. And next, I'd like to introduce Kevin Doolan. He's our Director of Innovation here at the Telecommunications Software and Systems Group at Waterford Institute of Technology. Kevin has been leading technical projects now for over 20 years and has worked in academia, governmental, and industry contexts. He is the coordinator of DEMETER, and he'll give a brief overview of the project. Kevin?
Okay. Hi everyone, as I said, my name is Kevin Doolan. I'm the Director of Innovation in the Telecommunications Software and Systems Group in Waterford Institute of Technology. Just before I start the main presentation, I just want to say a few thank yous on behalf of myself and Stefan. Just firstly, thanks to Deirdre and Grania from TSSG for organising the logistics around the webinar. Thanks Hazel as well for acting as our MC for the day. Hazel is our strategic business partner for Agri Research in TSSG, so if you need to know about TSSG Agri work, she's the person to talk to. Also, I want to thank Joel and Doris from the Commission for giving their time and opening the event. And finally, I want to thank the DEMETER project team. They've been working extremely hard over the past few weeks and months, and we had quite a good first review this week with the European Commission and the reviewers. So just a quick note on the TSSG itself. TSSG was founded in 1996, and we really have our history in EU projects, actually starting back in Framework 5. We're a full research lifecycle centre, which means we cover the full research spectrum from basic science all the way through to commercialization. At the heart of our organisation, we're all about researching core technologies and enablers, such as artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, data analytics, and so on, and then applying these to different verticals, and in this case, agriculture. So DEMETER, as you probably know at this stage from the presentations earlier, DEMETER is essentially a sister project to ATLAS. We were both funded under DTICT 09. We're a 60 partner project spread across 18 countries in Europe. And DEMETER is all about enabling interoperability across the full agri value chain, particularly at a data level, which you're going to hear a lot about today in the detailed presentations to follow. To verify the results of DEMETER, we've got 20 different pilots, which are spanning 5 agricultural sectors. We also firmly promote the multi-actor approach, and as such, we have a network of about 6,000 farmers that are engaging with the project. And we also have involved the World Farmers Organization, so we can extend our dissemination actually on a global scale as well. The slide here just gives some examples of our pilots, just to show you the types of things we're investigating within the project. And you can get more details on all of these on our project website. But just as an example, for example, we've got water and energy management pilots related to arable crops. So looking at things like smart energy management in irrigated crops or optimal rice irrigation. We have pilots on precision farming, again related to arable crops, where we look at in-service agricultural machinery condition monitoring. We look at data brokerage services, decision support systems, and so on. We also deal with crop health and quality in the fruit and vegetable sector. And as an example here, we're looking at implementation of decision support systems for olive growers. On the animal health side, we have a lot of work going on in the area of dairy and meat production, where we produce dashboards for those various supply chains. And also we have cross-sectoral pilots, which kind of cover the whole supply chain. So for example, we've got a pollination optimization in apiculture, or we've got pilots that are about enabling transparency in the poultry industry supply chain. You'll hear a lot more about our multi-actor approach and our technology approach as the day progresses, so I'm not going to go into details on that in this presentation. Just to give a quick note on where we're at the moment in terms of the project. We started in September 2019. Our multi-actor approach is fully underway, and we have gathered our initial requirements. We have our initial reference architecture ready, and again, you'll hear about that in the following presentations. Some of the piloting work is starting, albeit there has been some delays due to COVID-19. Essentially, it's not easy to get people to go out and visit other people in an agricultural setting and deploy technologies and so on, but now that's easing, so things are going to start ramping up. And we're preparing our open calls, and I know there's a presentation a little bit later on about open calls where you can see how you can get involved in DEMETER and ATLAS and other projects as well. Just a few links then on the bottom. You have the link there to our DEMETER website where you can get a lot more detail on our pilots. And then we've got Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube as well, where we're rolling out a series of video explainers about the project. And that's me, short and sweet. I'll stop there and let you get on with the more detailed presentations. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you. And we just do have a quick question for Stefan, actually, which is, Stefan, are you there?
Yes, I've seen the question now. I mean, I can answer it here. ATLAS will run until September 2022. That's the current plan. Maybe we'll go for an extension, also due to COVID-19. It is open to partners through the open calls, which will be introduced by my colleague Tamara Neidenauer this afternoon. That's the answer.
Okay.
And Hazel, I might jump in because I see a question there on a similar question for DEMETER. So again, DEMETER is a 42-month project. The question is, when is the DEMETER open call? It's going to be just after the summer, and we've a presentation again in the afternoon session with details of how you can find out about that and what's going to be involved as well. We have 2 open calls in the project, so this is our first one launching this year.
Great. Great. Thank you very much for that, Kevin, and to Stefan as well. Just to remind everybody again that there is a question functionality, and if you post the questions in there, they'll be directed to the presenter. If the questions are done during the presentation, the presenter will actually answer publicly, and if they're done after or during another presenter's presentation, the presenter that you're looking for the question to be answered by will actually answer privately online to you. If you could put the person's name that you're directing the question to, that would be great. And not to worry, if we do run out of time with regards to the questions, we are keeping a bank of them, and we will answer them after the webinar. Also to note, the webinar is being recorded today as well, and the presentations and the recording will be sent to all of the participants afterwards. Thank you very much to Joelle, Doris, Kevin and Stefan, just to give us an overview of the project or the webinar for today. We're now moving along to the technology piece for today, and I'd like to introduce Professor Ayana Borowski. And she is the DEMETER Work Package 2 leader on data and knowledge, and the leader of the task on the DEMETER reference architecture design. In the last 20 years, she's participated in over 20 EU research projects, where she has held key technical or management roles. Her research interests are in IoT, communications, AI, and data engineering. Ayana will outline the DEMETER reference architecture. Ayana?
Okay, morning to everybody from me as well. This is a very short presentation trying to give you a rough idea of what the DEMETER reference architecture is about. First of all, a quick overview of the DEMETER objectives. As Kevin mentioned earlier on, one of our main focus here is to support interoperability on various levels, syntactic, semantic, technical interoperability. And this is achieved via the data modeling, the common data modeling approach that we have implemented. These facilities are available via the interoperability space that we provide. We use open standards, and everything is coupled with security and privacy protection mechanisms. The central entity in our approach is the farmer, which we aim to empower so that he gains control over his own data, and even manage to make some money out of the resources he wishes to make available to external parties. We have built the necessary business models to support this. Also, in order to support the farmer, we have built a benchmarking mechanism as well as a system that enables stakeholders to directly interact to one another, exchange views, and be able to select the most appropriate solution for their needs. So the goal here is to reverse the relationship between suppliers and farmers to the benefit of the farmer always. And everything aforementioned is demonstrated via a series of pilots. As Kevin mentioned, we have 20 pilots built around 5 clusters. And this is about to start. Our first round of pilots is about to start. You will hear later on about this in following presentations. In order to accomplish these objectives, there are a few main concepts that our architecture is built upon. The dashboard you see here is the sole entry point for all stakeholders to our system. The stakeholder, the SOX, the stakeholder open collaboration space here, is to be used by farmers, agronomists, service advisors that wish to exchange views and participate in the co-creation process that we make available via DEMETER. On the other hand, we also offer a dedicated space, the ACE, the Agricultural Interoperability Space, that is actually to be used by developers, by service providers, by people that want to build something based on DEMETER and offer it to end user. The main facility it offers is, of course, as its name suggests, interoperability, but it's not only that. I will elaborate further later on in the presentation. The heart of DEMETER is the DEMETER Enabler Hub. This is where every resource that is compatible to DEMETER resides. Every such resource that can be a plain sensor, a piece of software, an entire system like a platform or a machinery, has a representation in the DEMETER Enabler Hub. And via this, it is discoverable by any external party that wishes to make use of it. These are the main concepts of the DEMETER reference architecture. How we built this? Well, we followed a typical approach, a typical methodology that's based on well-known standards for architecture design. Of course, we didn't build it from scratch. We first reviewed the state-of-the-art related reference architecture coming from various domains, the IoT domain, Internet of Things domain, big data domain, industrial domains, and of course, sector-specific solutions coming not only from the smart farming sector, such as H2020 solutions or data bio, but also coming from other domains, the health domain, smart factories, and so on. And driven by the DEMETER vision and DEMETER objectives, also considering the stakeholder requirements that came from our pilots and the respective use cases, we came up with over 30 requirement classes, under which we identified over 500 technical requirements. The DEMETER reference architecture addresses all these. I mentioned before the hub, the DEMETER Enabler Hub, which is core to our architecture. I repeat that this is like an open marketplace where DEMETER compatible resources are made available. In order for that to be applicable, we need a DEMETER enhanced entity to represent every platform, thing, service, or application that wishes to be discoverable via our system. We use here the DEMETER provider and DEMETER consumer blocks based on the IDS well-known approach. And underlying, we have some DEMETER core enablers that are provided by the system that cover the mandatory, let's say, functionality that needs to be in place by any resource that wishes to be registered in our hub, in the DEMETER Enabler Hub. This spans from communication and networking facilities, functional and semantic interoperability facilities, of course, security and privacy, and needless to say that wrapped in the core enablers, we have the DEMETER Hub client, the DEMETER Enabler Hub client. You see here a reference of the DEMETER data model. This is no other from the DEMETER AIM, the agricultural information model, that covers it's a common data model that wishes to bridge the gap between the rich and the very diverging solutions that exist currently in the smart agri or in the agri-food domain regarding data modeling. In order to build this, we have examined all available solutions, and we built our model based on standards that have wide penetration in the market right now. It is following a layered approach. So we have, in the upper layer, we have our core meta model that's built on the ETSI standard NGSI LD. Below that, we have a cross-domain ontology level that also is built on well-known ontologies such as SOSA SSN. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, for me it's black right now. Okay, W3C ontologies and other well-known standards. In the third layer, we have domain-specific solutions coming from the smart agri-food domain always. And this again is built on ontologies that enjoy dominance in the agri-food domain, such as SARA for Agri, or the agri data models coming from Fiverr, or the Inspire Foodie ontology, and so on. On a vertical layer here, you see the meta data support that we provide that is also built on standards. It's a standardized solution. We have chosen to build our model here on W3C DCAT, as well as the IDS model for metadata schema. And on the lower layer, underlying AIM, we have the semantic enablers that we provide. You see here blocks with labels of well-known standards that we provide compatibility with. These are actually translators or wrappers that are exploited so that the data modeled using these can be converted easily to our DEMETER AIM model and vice versa. This is an overview of the DEMETER advanced enablers. The aforementioned core enablers are, as I said, mandatory. And if you want to be able to communicate with the DEMETER system in order to either consume or provide your own resources, you have to implement this for sure. But there are also some optional, we call them advanced enablers, that are offered by the system and if necessary, the interested stakeholders can make use of this as well. These cover not only data and knowledge enablers with enhanced functionalities such as knowledge extraction, machine learning, data integration, fusion, data quality control, and so on. But also decision support, benchmarking, and performance monitoring enablers you see in the middle horizontal layer. Also service management facilities, service integration facilities, device management facilities in the integrated delivery enabler layer. And everything, again, is coupled with the necessary data security and governance enablers that we provide, that, among others, support authorization, authentication, traceability facilities, and so on. This is a high-level view of how the DEMETER reference architecture instantiation look like. Here you see the resources that are provided outside DEMETER, but wish to be registered or to be compatible with our system. To do this, as I said, they need to implement the DEMETER provider. Here, this is indicated like as a pink triangle, you see. Various communication protocols are supported. On the layer above, we have the agricultural interoperability space, the ACE that I aforementioned, that offers all these advanced enablers, of course, the core enablers as well. And on the upper layer, we have the applications, the DEMETER-enabled applications that have been used using these enablers offered by the hub, offered by our system. The users of the applications, as I aforementioned, via the dashboard, they can access the hub and discover the applications that are suitable for them, and the system can advise which of the applications or resources provided in DEMETER is more suitable for them. This concludes my presentation. It was very short. I tried to give a brief overview of what we're aiming for here. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayana. Thank you very much for that presentation. The next presenter that I'd like to introduce is Athanasios Palikadas from Intrasoft International. He is the coordinator of the Data Bio Lighthouse project and the integration management of DEMETER. Until 2014, he worked at the Helsinki Aerospace, heading out the satellite and space department, and between 2014 and 16, he led the Akazu infrastructure and research teams. Since 2017, he's worked at Intrasoft International. He will present today on how DEMETER takes its reference architecture to provide a core reference implementation in order to support its pilot implementations and beyond. Thanasis?
Thank you, Hazel. I'm continuing now on after Ioanna's presentation on how you can see my screen, right? Just to verify.
Yes, I can see your screen. And just watch the time as well, Thanasis. Sorry. Thank you.
So how to all these items and elements and the concepts that we defined in the reference architecture of DEMETER, how we go about to implementing them and taking further towards the piloting. So just this was shown also by Ioanna. On the left hand, just a reminder, on the left hand side we have the collaboration space for all the stakeholders. On the right hand side, the integration space for the developers, the neighbor hub in the middle with all the interfaces at the top, and how do we go about arranging them, right? So in this picture, so you see also what they mainly include. So the collaboration space includes mostly the catalog of the stakeholders, the tools available to collaborate, and the knowledge, how it's been accumulated and managed in this space. The neighbor hub, in essence, includes the users, the resources that are being available through the hub to everybody, to these users, and the access control that they have, these users, to these resources. So it covers licensing and all this kind of accesses. The integration space on the right-hand side includes all the tools to provide and facilitate the integration, continuous integration and continuous development of the DEMETER applications. And it also includes the brokerage service environment for the runtime support. So when you run something, what you expect to see is something like that. We have a set of DEMETER hash entities, as Ioanna was presenting them, that they coordinate through the brokerage service environment, and they talk to each other. And this is what Ioanna said, that all these, we have standard wrappers that provide common interfaces for all of them to facilitate better interoperability and integration, and easier integration. Right? And of course, as again Ioanna presented, the common language everything is talking about is DIM, right? The semantic data model. And what constitutes a DEMETER application is a set of this. This cycle is a set of DEMETER hash entities talking with each other and coordinated through a brokerage service environment. And the users, of course, are all the stakeholders from the farmers, solution providers, any kind of user of the DEMETER application. So this is all how it's all been arranged. Now, the next thing to present is how do we go about our approach of implementing all these concepts. So what we do is we first provide a reference implementation. So in our central cloud, the DEMETER central cloud, we will be offered the SOCs, the hub, but also a reference implementation of the brokerage service environment and of some main DEMETER-enabled entities. Right? So this is the reference implementation. In the simple case, we expect each pilot in DEMETER to make a copy in their own infrastructure and around an independent application by copying the brokerage service environment and deploying their own DEMETER hash entities, following the paradigm, of course, from the reverse implementation. Right? So this allows both the pilots to both get sovereignty and ownership of their implementation and provide credible feedback back to the reference of what to improve and what to do. We do allow, of course, implementations where the pilots will use the central brokerage service environment. So they, in the complex case, they will use the central brokerage service environment cloud. Some DEMETER hash entities functionalities also available in the cloud, and they maybe complement them by their own DEMETER hash entities deployed at closer to the field or their own infrastructure. Okay. So this kind of approach allows us to provide a lot of flexibility. First, by having these two levels of implementations, it's easier to get feedback from one to the other and migrate features from one to the other. Important features that are cross-pilot, for example, can migrate from pilot implementations to the reference implementation. It also allows supports large number of deployments. So for one extreme, if you go for extreme, but a pilot may only use the cloud elements, it goes from the business model where you have only on-demand cloud service, right, to the other extreme is where the pilot deploys on their location, is to complete a kind of a license standalone deployment with a license base or whatever kind of business models be chosen. So this approach allows us to provide both concrete implementations through the reference implementations, but also allow full flexibility for any kind of business models we decide to pursue in DEMETER. Now going a little bit on the implementation of the main components that I showed earlier, the brokerage service environment is, let's say it's a typical microservices-based, high-end, of course, microservice-based framework. The DEMETER has entities, they will authenticate, and then they will be able to register, discover each other, and provision services through this environment. Right. They could talk with each other after of course, registering and provisioning with the server, the brokerage server. They will talk with each other either directly through, and we do allow, and also the publish subscribe pattern of talking to each other, because this is also very popular and very modern kind of approach where you publish and subscribe to, let's say, data pipelines. And consider this MQTT or Kafka, this kind of pipelines. This is the implementation of the security server, which allows for authentication of authorization information audit capabilities. This being used by both the Enabler Hub and the brokerage service environment, and as well by all the DEMETER entities and has entities through their enablers to authenticate and register and get access. And also in development, we have the DEMETER Enabler Hub. As you see, it has the interfaces, its dashboards. Then it uses a compatibility checker from the integration space, which provides, certifies that the component that is about to be registered is compatible to the DEMETER guidelines, and then the facilities to manage and discover the resources. These components have been added and cataloged in the DEMETER marketplace in this hub, right? And on the right-hand side, you see, of course, on the top, the security of the users, right, accounts, and then how we handle the modules that handles the resource grant allocations to the users, from the users to the users for the resources. The SOX is also under development with a stakeholder catalogs, a set of success stories, collaboration tools, knowledge management, some experimental facilities, and all this innovation space that, and all this will be available through universal searches and workflows and KPIs. Under development, of course, are the enablers. I'm not going to describe them again. Joanna presented them very well. They provide the added value to the reference implementation, right? All these extra functionalities that are being offered by DEMETER over the third-party components. And of course, the common language, Joanna presented this as well, is at the development. So just to show our roadmap, we are in the first iteration now over the 2 iterations to have implementation. We started by doing a state-of-the-art analysis, by gathering all the existing technology assets that are available through partners, but also on the market and as open source. We gathered all the pilot requirements from the 20 pilots that we have, and we also compile a set of pilot platform requirements for the DEMETER platform requirements. And all this led to the reference architecture that you only presented. It's completed. The version 1 is delivered. The agriculture information model that's also completed, and these two have led, and all this guiding the reference implementation, which is now in progress, to be completed in the next weeks. And in 1 month time or more, a little more, it will start being used in the pilots, and we will start getting feedback from them.
Just 2 minutes now, Thanasis.
I'm done. Any questions?
Great, thank you. We might actually just hold the questions until Arne has presented, just so if you could just outline, that would be great.
Of course, I will turn off my video.
Perfect. So the next presenter that I'd like to introduce is Volker Zippel from CLAS, and Volker Zippel is the product owner of the API products of the CLAS group and is leading the sub-team for the ATLAS Work Package 3. Volker today will outline the ATLAS high-level architecture. Volker?
Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm about to give more details about the current status of the ATLAS reference architecture for the ATLAS project and where we are at the moment. You've seen this slide before. It was already shown by Stefan, but I just want to remind you again what we're doing here at the moment. Our high-level architecture at the moment is...
Volker, it's not in presentation mode, it's your edit mode, so you might switch around the screens.
Okay, sorry.
I mean, with your...
It should only be on one screen anyway. Well, then I'll change that to this. This should work. Give a minute. Just have to tell my computer what I want to have from him. So here we go. So now it should be there.
Yes,
yeah,
perfect.
Now I only have to make him show it to me as well. 1 second. So okay, here we go. Yes, there we are again. The ATLAS interoperability high-level architecture for the moment. Okay, what we are aiming in the ATLAS project, and one of the biggest issues that we have for the moment, or the biggest, let's say, challenges, is we have a very complex pattern of use cases and a very complex solution room, which actually spans from solutions of data platforms, from in-field sensors, sensor platforms, something that actually runs in the barn, livestock management, etc., etc. So we have a very broad approach for things that we have to, or what we're trying to get under one head with the technology and an interoperability network that actually enables all the participants to be able to bring in their data and bring in the services that they want to actually provide in the network. So for the moment, our biggest approach is that we have two big parts actually complementing each other, which is the one for all the data platform and the exchange and processing, and one for everything that's happening on board with computing and processing abilities in something that actually can be attached to like anything that actually can produce data for us, which is interesting. Let's be here. Where in the end, these two big approaches are divided in the mesh network. One's for the services that actually will connect like every solution and data platform, or should be connect every solution and data platform that we have in the business at the moment. And the second is all around things that we want to put in the bar. And I will come to the mesh network first. What you see here is a very small and very aggregated picture of what we actually think would happen in the end. We have one central component for the mesh network approach here, which is the service registry, which we actually would like describe as a big address book for everyone in the network to actually be in the position to find each other and to find others to connect to. Then you have all the participants around it, and what you see here is we have participants that are already connected to the registry, and we have pretty much blue arrows between the participants directly. So what we are aiming for is that the participants in the end should always be talking to each other like in a peer-to-peer manner, and just should be able and just should be able to find each other over the service registry. Digging a bit deeper in the network participant, we think that every participant will have, or all participants will have, a variety of solutions which are already in place, and so we see that with a more central component called the ATLAS data service, all that we have outside there in form of clouds and solution providers today should be able to combine or connects to the ATLAS network through an ATLAS data service. This ATLAS data service in the end shall keep their sovereignty over everything that they have. And oh, this is broken up, 1 second. So it keeps their sovereignty, and but that brings up the participants in the need to bring some stuff as well that we actually do not see that the ATLAS network will bring. So for example, something like a proprietary service from the own data services, an identity provider, consent management systems, and data storage capabilities, which will still be placed in the participants themselves. So only the connection in between them will be regulated or will be organized through the ATLAS data service. Coming to the central component of the service registry, we see this as an identifier for the participants, which can actually register a service upon a service request for the registry. From quality views and for quality issues, we see that there can be later on something like a certification for the registry, which could actually come from someone not connected to any economic or whatever aim. So and this could be a marketplace then for everything, for everybody who wants to provide services. In the service registry, the data services will be registered with their capabilities. There will be functions for actually registering, deregistering, for participants, for services, for capabilities, etc. So that in the end, one provider or one consumer in the network can actually, for example, browse that registry, and then there can find actually service providers that bring in, for example, weather data or machine data or yield services, etc. One thing about the data service and their layers, for the moment, we are thinking that the data services will be always built up on already existing services in all the already connected platforms and systems that we have in the ag business. So every provider or every consumer lately in trying to, or at least participating in the network, will be in the need to introduce and implement a service layer in between the ATLAS layers and his own proprietary formats. We see here a service interface and a service layer mapping actually for everything that's related to capabilities and stuff and communication of the systems itself. And then we have these ATLAS supported formats, which we are at the moment very agnostic. That's our current state of, let's say, like standardization that we have. We are taking, like, for the moment, we are trying to build a channel where you can like push everything through that is currently in the market. For later or in later phases, we probably will bring a subset of formats and data types that we are actually seeing as standards, which are then to be extended over time through the ATLAS providers and ATLAS network when it's run, actually. Let's come to the other complementary part of the whole network, which is divided into the AppCenter and the AppEngine. Up here you see a picture again with an ATLAS registry and the AppCenter. Here now in these blue boxes, they are separated to each other. In the end, they are very much complementary to each other because the ATLAS AppCenter provides everything that the registry provides for services. The ATLAS AppCenter provides for applications. So the this is, for example, browsing and searching for applications, installing, updating, uninstalling, etc. Everything that a user actually wants. So what we want to do is, to give an example, there will be a box, for example, where we have an AppEngine running, and this box will be connected to the AppCenter, and this box can then draw apps from there. And those apps then can communicate to each other. They can communicate closely to everything that is related to hardware. So that is, in the end, the aim for all this app stuff. I come to the next one with the AppEngine and the onboard computing. So why we're actually dividing this one? We see that we will have a lot of use cases and a lot of scenarios where we will be in the need to have computing time and calculation time just in the moment where data actually is recorded or is used or needed. And that means that we have to provide something that is able to communicate either with itself or with another app engine or with the clouds behind it or machinery or whatever. So if you, for example, take a livestock use case in consideration, where we're actually, for example, videoing animals to analyze their behavior, we will need a lot of calculation time in the barn itself, rather than having that calculation time in the cloud, for example, because you will have the need, or you will probably have not that good connections, etc. So that so it brings us in the need to have these two approaches, that we have calculation time on the position where we actually need it. The AppEngine. Sorry.
Sorry. You just have a minute left. Sorry, Volker.
Yeah, no problem. I'm done soon. The platform here provides, so this is the platform that actually is provided for executing applications on a machine, on something that can run it within the ATLAS runtime environment. So this AppCenter or the AppEngine can in the end be deployed like on everything which would actually host it. And coming to the apps that we actually see in this AppEngine is we see real-time apps, job apps, platooning apps, etc. They are all for different use cases and all for different purposes. They will all communicate through that AppEngine with the outer world, either companion services in clouds or machines directly. And probably most of them will come with a cloud-based companion service, which then is registered in the registry. And there we have this combination between these complementary approaches here of the AppEngine and app environment, and of the cloud-based solution and mesh network on the other hand. Short summary: Atlas interoperability reference architecture, the big two concepts I mentioned before, data platform based and onboard computing for processing. And only two central components in this case, only the registry and the AppCenter. And what we're doing, actually, we are doing two paths of the implementation. We are trying to bring in early pilots now and stuff like that. But what we are actually assuming is that we are a bit delayed because of COVID and stuff. So getting into the field and getting people together is complicated at the moment. So thank you, and eager for your questions.
Thank you very much, Volker. And we're just going to keep the questions just till the end of all of the technology presentations. So we'll take the questions after Arne has presented, if that's okay, Volker.
Yeah,
just
I'm fine.
For everybody in the technology section, we do have a general question for everybody, but I'll ask that question after Arne has presented as well. Thank you very much, Volker. Just to let everybody know, we are running 15 minutes late on our time slot. We did have difficulties just with the password at the very beginning of the webinar, so we are running 15 minutes late. So we will have, or we hope to have a break in about 15 minutes. So our next presenter is Dr. Arne Ver from Syntef. He's the Chief Research Scientist at Syntef Digital in Oslo. And since 1995, he has been involved in standardization activities, and in particular on geographic data management and geospatial infrastructures and models. He's currently the leader of TF6 on technical priorities in the Big Data Value Association, and is further involved in projects on data sharing and digital twins in the Horizon 2020 program. In the context of today's presentation, he is involved in the DEMETER project with a responsibility for the DEMETER standardization framework, and has involvement in the Norwegian pilot on the farmer's dashboard, including the use of AI machine learning for prediction of milk production from cows. Arne?
So my topic here is on standardization approaches that we have in the DEMETER project. And just Continue with the overview of the content. So I'll talk about the DEMETER standardization framework, how this is related to the BDVA and IoT and other reference model with a focus on generic pipelines, both on the pilot level and on the technology infrastructure level. Provide a couple of examples of these generic pipelines in IoT and linked data, and then related to standards and standardization organizations that we have related to so far, and the next steps. Also show part of the standardization approaches of the task forces and groups in BDVA and IoT related to smart farming and agriculture that we are working with. So first, the standardization framework. Standards occur in a number of areas, both in pilots or in applications, as well as in the technology infrastructure. For this, we are using the BDVA reference model from the Big Data Value Association, as you see on the bottom, that talks about a number of technology areas, going from IoT sensors through infrastructure with cloud support, data management, data processing, data analytics, data visualization, and across a number of different data types, from structured to unstructured, time series, spatial temporal, media, text, graph data. That often is combined, obviously, in applications based on ontologies and vocabularies for data model interoperability, but typically brought together in an overall high-level pipeline that we see generically from say, application point of view, going on the top level here from data acquisition, data collection to data preparation, data analytics, and data visualization and user interaction. So this is what we call the top level pipeline, and for most of the applications they follow these steps, and of course we'll use different components and technologies in the steps that again will be targeted for standards or standardization. Orthogonal, there is other things like data sharing platforms, communication and security standards. So it's a number of things that are involved in complex applications as we have. So we view standards and standardization activities from this perspective. On the high level pipeline, this can be instantiated in different levels. If you look at IoT real-time data as an example, we have one level, a generic pipeline that deals with the IoT devices, the real-time data collection and processing, typically streaming event-based, dealing with complex event processing, and then the support of analytics and visualization. Further, there will be concrete components in these steps following this, say, generic pipeline to be going to more instance pipelines, where we will start to identify interoperability points and access interfaces suitable for interoperability and standardization. There are many of these pipelines. Here is the linked data graph data pipeline for knowledge graph, linked data, data collection and presentation. So we see that we follow the same 4 main steps. Now there are heterogeneous data sources with different access methods for data management. Data preparation here includes also graph processing and provisioning of this with data publication and linking, use of data queries, support for analytics, and then algorithm for decision support and visualization. The good thing is that it's not one of these for each application. There will be thousands. There are a fewer set. A lot of applications follow combinations and elements of these generic pipelines, and this provides us with a suitable foundation to identify interoperability points and interfaces where standards are relevant. So what we have been looking at then in DEMETER so far is to identify relevant standard areas with their interoperability points and interfaces, both in pilot pipeline context, but also in the underlying technology infrastructure pipelines. As we heard now from both ATLAS and DEMETER, there are underlying technologies for dealing with service registries, with data access, authentication, authorization, and so forth. that also have important areas of interoperability points. So we have identified a number of standards and standardization groups that we are relating to, typically in two ways: standards that we use and standards that we see closely to the agriculture domain, and the need for also being more involved with respect to impact the standards and maybe initiate new standards. These areas are again mapped back to the reference model. So we have communication internet interoperability standards with well-known organizations at the IETF, the World Wide Web Consortium, their underlying technologies, OASIS and MQTT. There's a number of communication infrastructure standards. We also look into blockchain support with some blockchain-related standards, obviously using cloud computing standards, and a number of security standards that we might have also feedback on if they turn out to not fit our needs. But there are certainly standards that are closely related to activities in the agriculture domain. So geospatial data and Earth observation data and standards from the OGC and ISO TC211 are important standard organizations and standards that we use. Also, environmental animal welfare standards, such as ISO standards for radio identification of animals and for irrigation monitoring. Consumer food retail standards from GS1 and IFS. Obviously, in our applications, we have an increased now use of AI machine learning with the new ISO SC42 on AI and big data being prominent as a standard organization, as well as the ISO SC41 on IoT. This goes further into big data and data platforms and aspects of data sharing, but it also links to organizations that we heard mentioned, like IDS, the International Data Spaces and the Association, the integration of data infrastructure now with the European Gaia X initiative, and then the foundation of semantic interoperability support through vocabularies and ontologies, data exchange standard, such as the agriculture information model you heard about from DEMETER, how it relates to standards from ETSI, IoT, Smart M2M, the SAREF Agri standard, Inspire, related to ISO TC211, and agro vocabulary and other things emerging also into standard organizations such as OGC. So these we are more involved with because of their link to agriculture domain. But obviously also the more ICT-oriented standards are relevant to relate to, because we are making much use of those. And if any challenges occur in the pilots, we of course want to have the feedback mechanism for further improvement of these standards for the future. So these are some of the concrete standards and standardization organizations that we relate to. What we are doing now is to follow up the standards use, experiences and impacts from the pilot perspective. So looking at the standards planned for use in the pilot demonstrator pipelines and the impact relevance for that. And also in the more technical work, in our technical work packages, we look at the standards there for the infrastructure and how we can interact with the standardization groups that I mentioned. The IoT standards group and the Smart Agri group, BDVA. We have an interaction already with Atlas and DEMETER together in the OpenDI project, which is on digital platform interoperability across a number of sectors. So that includes energy and smart homes, but also agriculture. We have the emerging IDS integration of data sharing in the Gaia X European initiative, the European Interoperability Framework, the EU Multi-Stakeholder Standards Group, and also, of course, links into activities in the DJUR and open standards in ISO, CEN, CENELEC, OGC, ETSI, OMG, and others. Related to the European projects, there is a couple of groups that are in particular relevant to follow up because they are supporting the European projects that we are linked to. We have the IoT, the Alliance of Internet of Things Innovation, Working Group 3 on IoT standardization, which has provided a very good foundation on technical communication and IoT standards and that context, which is related to Working Group 6 on smart farming. So there is good work that has been done so far as a foundation that further can be contributed to, as well as in the BDVA, the Big Data Value Association, which has a technical priority group with a standardization focus and a benchmarking. So I'm the lead of this Task Force 6 on technical priorities. And then we have the application group, where we have a special agriculture group led by Nuria Sanchez from Atos. So these two groups are in particular, say, related because they are supporting each other and supporting European projects, and it's a particular relevant contact point. So that was the overview of the approaches we have, and here are some references to me and to the project. Okay,
Arne,
thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We just do have one question, and then we will take a break, and we'll take a slightly shorter break today. We'll hope to finish just in the next 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll just take a 10-minute break instead of a 15-minute break. So I have a question actually for all of the panelists involved in the technology piece of today's webinar, which is Ayana, Thanasis, Volker, and Arne. People are just wondering if one of you could possibly highlight the differences or similarities or advantages or disadvantages of the architecture of both projects. Would anybody like to take that question?
I mean, I can, Stefan Rilling from ATLAS, I can take over. What I would have to say is it's yet difficult to answer what are the advantages, disadvantages, because I would say to give a good answer on this, we need real implementations of both architectures and demonstrations of use cases which we can do with these architectural approaches, and then we can see what are the real advantages, disadvantages. So I'm afraid that I cannot give a real answer on this, except from we will have to wait until we see something. I'm not sure, Kevin, what you are thinking about this.
Hi. Yeah, well, one thing I can say is we have a workshop organized next week between ATLAS and DEMETER, actually specifically to look at that type of question about what's the complementarities and differences and approaches between our various architectures. So we just have to wait for the output from that.
And when will the output from that be available, Kevin, or do you know when it might be available?
We don't know. We're not actually sure, Stefan. Are we going to do a report on that, or what is it? It might just be an internal thing, but we could maybe doing some sort of a joint, even possibly a joint white paper on the approaches or something like that.
Yes, I would say something like this should be done, and let's see what comes out next week. Yeah, I mean, there are differences in both architectural approaches. I think what ATLAS is one thing which we have, especially in ATLAS, is that edge computing, on-site computing considered into the architecture. So there are differences, but I mean, we are far away from being able to judge what is working, what is not working, and I think a joint white paper or an overview about all the most recent architectures would be one way to give a better answer to that question.
And I'm sure it's
one approach would be to use this reference model we have in the standards context and to identify common standards areas that would be relevant for both of the projects, both of the approaches. So that can be part of the discussion. But as I said, this is work to be done that we should put into now these workshops coming up.
Perfect.
Yeah, and just to say, I mean, the workshops that are coming up are also taking into account existing architectures from projects like H2020 and so on as well.
We're now moving on to the multi-actor ecosystems approach by both the ATLAS and DEMETER project. And with that in mind, I'd like to present to you, or to Anja Lenneman and Stefan Reeling from Fraunhofer will give their presentations. So Dr. Anja Lenneman is a biochemist, and since 2011 she has worked as a project and research manager at Fraunhofer Institute of Applied Information Technology in Augustine. In the past, she's been involved in a number of national and international projects in the field of life sciences, but especially in healthcare. Responsible for establishing new research opportunities in the fields of sustainable food. Stefan, whom you would have met earlier on, is the project coordinator for ATLAS. And Anja and Stefan will present the multi-actor approach in both DEMETER and ATLAS today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. I hope you see my slides already.
Yes, I can, Anja, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak about the multi-actor approach in DEMETER. And before I start speaking about the special multi-actor approach in DEMETER, I would like to say a few words according the multi-actor approach itself. Of course, you know that DEMETER and ATLAS require to apply the multi-actor approach itself, and the multi-actor approach projects aim at closing the innovation gap between research and between practice. So that means that scientists and developers have to closely collaborate with farmers to create solutions that are in the end really accepted by the users. In the past, the EU has allocated quite a lot of money to fund multi-actor approach projects. So about 1 billion euros have been allocated for that, and more than 180 multi-actor approach projects have been funded in the past. There is a quite nice brochure describing the core idea of multi-actor approach projects. You see the one on the right-hand side, and there's also the link inside the slide. So whenever you're interested in multi-actor approach projects, it is quite a good hint to have a look into the brochure that is offered by the EIP Agri. The main aspect of multi-actor approach projects is that they have to focus on real-life problems. That means that the problems that they are dealing with have to be the problems that end users like farmers and foresters are dealing with in the everyday life. And addressing those kind of problems is the best way to apply a co-creation process. That means that from the beginning, from the definition of the problem or the challenge that has to be tackled until the end, they join the forces to co-create the solutions, meaning that the end users, that the developers, and also other stakeholders are involved in the developing process. And in the end, if the multi-actor approach is successful, you will have a solution that is accepted because the end users, they co-decide within the development, and they are co-creators, and this leads to a accepted solution and a quite useful solution for the end users. In addition, multi-actor approach projects have to support these kind of activities with things like dissemination and promoting the results of the project and the process of the project, that the outer world also gets to know what is happening inside the project. So it's letting the people know what you are doing, and also facilitating the discussions on the project, and to get the opinions from other stakeholders, so that you know the opinions on that, and that you can also deal with their meanings and with their interests. How do we, meaning we as DEMETER, are tackling the multi-actor approach? You can see here some aspects that the work package 7, so we have an own work package for the multi-actor approach, which kind of aspects we are tackling within the project. Of course, the most important thing are the real-life problems, and they are defined by our 20 pilots. They have already been shortly described by Kevin in the beginning, but I would like to name them again. So we have 20 pilots that are distributed all over in Europe, and I don't know why, but I can't see my slides, but I can see myself right now. That makes it a bit difficult. But you see my slides fine, right?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, on you.
Okay. Okay. No. Okay. So we have the 20 pilots situated in Europe, in North, East, West, and South. And the pilots are clustered into 5 thematic clusters. The first 2 ones are dealing with arable crops. The first one is more focusing on water and energy management. Then we have the second one focusing on agricultural machinery and precision farming. Then we have the cluster fruits and vegetables, healthy and high quality crops. The fourth cluster is dealing with livestock, animal health, high quality and optimal management of animal products. And last but not least, we have a cluster, a cross-sectoral cluster addressing the full supply chain, interoperability and robotics. So these pilots define our real-life problems that we are addressing in DEMETER, and we will have a report on a presentation on the pilot 5.1, so from the 5th cluster later on, and I'm looking forward to hear what they are describing about their real-life problems, their challenges, and how we want to provide solutions to them. Yeah, of course, we have some other aspects as well. So the next aspect is the co-creation process with all actors. And co-creation takes place on different levels, but on the project level, we have defined an iterative approach, including testing under real conditions. So you see here just a small part of our Gantt. And you see that we have 2 pilot rounds, meaning that in these pilot rounds, the solutions that we have developed so far are applied on the pilot side, under real conditions, and in the hands of the farmers. And during this testing phase and evaluation phase, we gain feedback from them in their everyday life, and this kind of feedback, this knowledge, these experiences will be taken into account into the further development. So the solution is adapted and to the expectations from the farmers. Then it is tested again, and in the end, we will have a solution that really meets the farmers' needs. Then we have some more aspects that we want to address with our multi-actor approach. One is, for example, the knowledge exchange. Multi-actor approach projects should focus on knowledge exchange. They should foster the knowledge exchange inside the consortium and as well as outside of the consortium. And we had one activity which was driven on demand due to COVID-19. For example, we developed a workshop on how you can interactively interact with participants, but in a remotely way. So we have gathered some experiences on that during our activities, and we collected those kind of experiences and provided on the one hand an overview of for example, which kind of tools can be used, for example, performing user groups, performing hackathons. And on the other hand, we also provided the possibility to test one of those tools. This tool is called Mural. It's something like a whiteboard where you can perform brainstormings or voting sessions or clustering activities. So all this can be done with a tool called Mural, and we provided our participants the opportunity to test this tool. And the aim, of course, was to enable the participants to perform workshops on their own. Yeah, and we, of course, have some other activities like open calls. This is something that is addressed later in the webinar session. And of course, we are also performing targeted dissemination activities, and we are open for cross-project collaboration. So these are also aspects of the multi-actor approach. But due to the time, it's not possible to go that much into detail, and therefore I would like to hand over to Stefan, who is describing how the ATLAS project is addressing the multi-actor approach. And I'm looking forward to his presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anja. I think you can see the screen now.
I still see my screen. No, I see your screen. Yes, no. Okay.
That's good. So I will shortly present a multi-actor approach we are following in ATLAS and how we understand this in ATLAS. So we have already heard multi-actor approach is real-world problems and complementary expertise. And I'm just repeating the slide about a consortium, which actually shows our complementary expertise in the project. So we have actors and consortium members from very heterogeneous fields of expertise. We have computer scientists, we have engineers, we have hydrologists, we have agronomes, we have machinery engineers, we have a lot more. So I think we really fulfill this criteria of complementary knowledge in the project, and we are dealing with the real world problems from the farmers, from the machinery industry, which we also see as an end user of the technology we develop. So I think these two criteria are very well addressed by ATLAS. And here you see a more detailed overview what we are doing in ATLAS and how this relates to that multi-actor approach. So we have already heard today the term from farm to fork, and this reflects at least a part of the agricultural value chain. So we understand the multi-actor approach also to be working on multiple aspects of the agricultural value chain. And I mean, as you can see here in the image, so the fork is still a missing component. We are looking at all the machines, the sensors, which will then be enable the work on the field. And then after harvest, the yield is also on the farm. And then currently we stop there in ATLAS. It is of course envisioned to also connect the food processing industry to this, but currently we are not completely ending up at the fork or on the spoon, so to say. But the actors we have here in ATLAS are of course the farmers. They run the farm, they do the work there. We have machinery and sensor manufacturers which are delivering tools to support the farmers' work. Also the agricultural software and service providers which are part of that value chain, which provide tools to the farmer, and of course the farmer pays for this. Yeah, we have data service providers, we have research, which is also a part in the value chain, and we have also sensor platform and robotics development and research in ATLAS, which also contributes to tools and in the end contributes to a successful harvest. As it has been said, real-world problems are a main factor of that multi-actor approach. So on the following slide, I just briefly introduce you to the use cases we are working on in ATLAS, and where all the work in ATLAS is aligned on. And these use cases are reflecting very real problems farmers are today facing and will be for sure facing in the future. And that's just a very brief overview looking at the time. So we have that multi-harvest platoon management use case, data recording about yield quality, different machines, different harvesters, everything ends up in one yield quality map, and to be processed then by further analysis services. We have always end users from the consortium for these use cases. Then fertilization is also really major topic in ATLAS. So here the goal is, I mean, most of the farmers have livestock. This produces slurry that will be put out on the field. and then you fill up P, K, and N with artificial fertilizers according to sensor measurements. Also here we have multiple end users for this. Platoon management, machine tracking, online task management, connection from in-field sensors to machines. These are all machinery related use cases driven by the ag industry. So they are also really a driver for use cases in ATLAS. Then livestock behavioral analysis, something we are dealing with also multiple partners from ATLAS. You will hear about that in the upcoming presentation by my colleague, so I won't go into detail here. Related to livestock farming is nutrient cycle balance. Farmers have to document everything they bring in into the farm and they bring out on the field or as food. And we are trying to support this with a multitude of technology. Then targeted application of fertilizers, of plant protection using LiDAR sensing, using sensor data and online processing. It's also a use case here. Irrigation management, very important, especially for Southern European countries, but also emerging here in Germany. Sensor-driven irrigation, documentation, measurement, all these kind of things. Soil analysis through proprioceptive sensing, one mean for machine control, one use case driven by our research partners, also important for robotics. So, multiple use cases, provide technological solution for real-world problems, and the consortium reflects the multi-actor approach. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Stefan and Anya. I'll move along now to our next presenter, who is Gráinne Dillon from TSSG. Gráinne is the Communications and Dissemination Coordinator for the DEMETER project, and she is also a PhD researcher at TSSG here at Waterford Institute of Technology in Ireland. Her current research, which is funded by the DEMETER project, is focused on understanding the farmer's decision-making process in adopting smart farming technologies. Gráinne will present today some of the internal and external factors which impact the adoption of technology in an agri context. Gráinne?
Great. Okay. Hi, everyone. As Hazel mentioned, I will look at technology adoption in an agri context. And specifically speaking, I'm going to look at the factors which impact the adoption of smart technology. So why are we researching this? When you look at the adoption levels in the EU compared to other nationalities, we're definitely lagging behind, although there is a difference in between the various countries within the EU. So there's a real need to understand what's impacting the farmer's decision-making process and which factors hinder and influence them. So several researchers have looked at this area, and they've grouped the categories affecting adoption into 5 different categories. So I'm going to look at these in more detail. So we have the informational, the behavioral and social, the business and economic, the technological, and the external influences. Now, there are other factors, of course, influencing adoption, but in the time constraint that we have, these are what I'll focus on today. So moving to the informational factors. So adoption of a technology can only take place once diffusion occurs, so once the information seeps through to the relevant target audience. But if there's ineffective communication, this leads to lower levels of awareness, which leads to lower levels of adoption. So farmers cite that they perceive that they have a lack of awareness of these technologies, and they think there's a major disconnect or a gap in the knowledge transfer from experts, academics, scientists, right down to them. For those that are aware of the technologies, they believe that there's an information overload. So if a farmer goes to learn more about technology, they're seeing multiple different technologies available, from sensors to robotics to drones. So they're unsure as to which is the most relevant to them. Then they're unclear of the benefits. So they might read a case study relating to a farm in another part of the world, a bigger or smaller farm or a different type of farm. So they now think that smart technologies aren't relevant to them. And then really importantly, they cite that they're not clear on the return on investment. So that's a major point for them. They need more information on that. And then also they believe that the information that they're receiving there's more technical language being used, which alienates them somewhat. In terms of where the farmers getting their information, they're getting it from a variety of different sources. So it's really important that when we're diffusing the information to the farmer, that we're using a multitude of sources. So early tech adopters, they're more proactive in their approach, and they're actively seeking information. So they're talking to their farm advisor, but they're also using mass media to learn more. The more mainstream farmers, they tend to get their information from their peers and also maybe a family relationship as well. The farm advisor is one person that has been recognized as giving impartial advice. So early tech adopters and mainstream farmers, they trust this source of information above all. Membership of a farming group is also really positive, as they can share information among themselves, and also attending events that the government sponsors but that farmers are involved in can really help the farmer learn more about smart technologies. Next, we move to the behavioural and social factors. So age is an interesting one. So some studies say that there's no correlation between age and adoption, while others say that younger farmers are more likely to adopt the technology. So this would suggest that although age is important, it's not the most influential factor in determining adoption. Education, however, is important. So the more educated the farmer is, the more likely they are to adopt smart technologies. Culture is also quite an interesting one. So what is the culture of where the farmer is based, and what affinity do they have with traditional farming practices? So that will impact adoption. Location also is important, because that will look at, you know, the climate of where the farm is based. Will that be suitable for the technology adoption? But also what you'll see is clusters of farms in a region adopting technology, and that's really to do with diffusion of information between those farmers in that region. But perhaps more interesting is the role of perceptions and attitudes. So this really impacts the adoption of technology. So adoption is very much associated with what the farmer believes the impact will be. And that might be in terms of economic profitability, but also reduced environmental impact or time saving, etc. So this attitude, particularly towards technology, is formed by two variables. The first one is the perceived usefulness of that technology, and the second one is the perceived ease of use. So if the farmer believes that they have the capacity or the know-withal to use the technology, and if they believe that it will help them do their job in a better way, they're more likely to develop a positive attitude. Whereas if they have any distrust of technology, if they have fear about using it, they'll more likely develop a negative attitude. So this attitude really impacts on the behaviour they tend to use, which impacts the end adoption. So we really need to make sure that the farmer has a positive attitude toward these technologies. We also look at the role of the farmer's personality, so how open they are, how connected they are to society, and also what's their attitude to risk. So a risk-averse farmer is less likely to be interested in using technology. It should be noticed, though, that farmers, they say that their expectation of what the technology would deliver for them is significantly lower than what the tech providers or scientists believe. Next, we move to business and economic. So one of the major factors that farmers cite as hindering their adoption is the cost of what the smart technologies are. And it's not only the initial investment in terms of the hardware or software, but it's also the time it takes to upskill or to learn or what to use with the data that these technologies provide. So that's a major hindrance. And unsurprisingly, larger farmers are more likely to adopt these technologies because they can absorb some of the financial risk associated with implementation. So with that in mind, many smart farming solutions have been designed with that larger farmer in mind. And again, this alienates some of those smaller farmers. But it should be noted, because there's so many different types of farm sizes and different types of farming contexts, there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. And what we see is arable farmers or farmers involved in horticulture or viticulture, their adoption levels are slightly higher than animal-based farming. So there's definitely a difference there. We move to technological factors, which I won't talk about too much because I know Peter, who's after me, is going to discuss these. But the one thing we need to look at are the characteristics of the technology, because these help impact the user perception. So the first thing is, how easy is the technology to use? Is it intuitive, or is it difficult for the farmer once they have it? So the more intuitive it is, the easier it will be to adopt. The next is how compatible the technology is with the farmer's values and experience. So if it matches, again, it's going to be easier for the farmer to adopt. Trialability is very important. So if the farmer feels that they can adopt the technology, trial it before full adoption, this will help increase their adoption level because it reduces some of the risks that they see associated with full implementation. And then the next thing is relative advantage. So does the technology improve the way the farmer is currently doing things? If the farmer believes it so, they will adopt, no problem. And then finally, observability is more important for those mainstream or later adopters. So if they can physically see themselves that the farmer who has adopted the technology is reaping the benefits, they'll be more likely to adopt as well. Just briefly to talk about in terms of technology factors, we have to look at the role of connectivity, interoperability, and data privacy concerns, because these all can create a negative attitude towards adoption, which will create a negative behavioral intent. So if these issues aren't solved, it can lead to distrust and skepticism, and that can be hard to overturn. And then the final area we look at is external influences. So who are the stakeholders in the value chain, and how do they impact the farmer and their decision-making process? So of all these in front of us here, the regulator is the most influential. So farmers cite that tax subsidies or incentives will be the most beneficial in terms of encouraging them to adopt technology. But we are seeing a real trend moving towards sustainable consumption. So customers are looking for products that have been farmed sustainably, etc. So the retailer, the processor, and distributor, they're now looking to create these kind of products, which could put some further pressure on the farmer to use these technologies. Although it should be noted that if the farmer feels that they're forced into using these technologies, they have a major distrust of the technology. So in conclusion, how do we overturn some of these factors and encourage adoption among the farming community? Well, we need to create more case studies that are relevant to the farmer. So in terms of their location, their type of farm, their size of farm, there needs to be more training, education, and workshops for these farmers, particularly government-sponsored events, because they feel that that advice is impartial, but that farmers are involved in them. So it very much goes back to that multi-actor approach. The farm advisor has a big role to play because, again, we know that they're trusted. So if information can be diffused through them effectively, it can help to increase the awareness levels, which can help the adoption levels. There was a question earlier about small farmers getting access to capital for these technologies, and that is an area that, you know, could be looked at. There might be some area for shared initiatives between farmers within a location. The government are continuing to invest in this technology, and that must increase. So even though the farmer may have all the intent to use the technology, if the infrastructure lets them down, it's no good. So we need continued investment in those areas. For those who have data privacy concerns, there need to be contracts and agreements so that they feel that they know exactly what's happening with their data and it's trustworthy. And then if there is an opportunity to incentivize the farmer to use the technologies, again, it would make sense for them. So that's it from me. Thanks. We'll take questions at the end.
Great, Gráinne, thank you very much. Actually, I do have a question for you straight away. Brilliant presentation. And a question has just come in for you. You've given some really good insights into the factors influencing farmers' adoption of technology. How is DEMETER helping?
Well, I'm doing my PhD on this at the moment. So what I'm looking at is the farmers' decision-making process when adopting technology. And within DEMETER, there are 6,000 farmers taking part. So I will be, and some of them are tech-savvy, some are not tech-savvy, so there's a real mix, and they're from all the different European countries. So I will be doing a questionnaire to these farmers and also some interviews with them as well to really understand their decision-making process, what are the pain points. And again, because as we heard earlier, there's a lot of them involved in these pilot projects, we can learn more about how they feel the technology is working for them, anything that they would change in terms of the design, anything they would change in terms of data privacy as well. So I suppose we're down at the ground level talking to the farmers who are using the technology, learning about their experiences, and then as part of my PhD, I'll be talking to a wider network, understanding the subject in more detail.
Yeah, Hazel, I can also jump in on that as well. Just to note, again, you know, we've got multiple pilots running across, all the way across Europe in a large amount of different farms, and there we'll be able to actually show and demonstrate the capabilities of our technology. So it dovetails in very closely with what Grania is looking at within the project.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you very much. A really interesting PhD, Grania. I'm sure people are very envious across Europe as to what you're doing at the moment. Well done. So next, Peter Frolick from Agri Circle. Peter Frolick is a farmer and agronomist and worked for a leading agri business company for more than 7 years. In 2012, Peter incorporated Agri Circle together with Daniel Marquard and Sense is working there in precision farming with a focus on remote sensing and digital agronomy. Peter will present technology adoption from a farmer's perspective today, focusing on interoperability and data protection and privacy. Peter?
So, welcome to everyone from my side. I'd like to present the farmer's perspective. It's more a hands-on perspective of farmers, how we have observed it in the market. So let me just go through it quickly. Farmers today, they have a lot of things to manage, and this is sometimes overseen. So they work on different things just for a short time, or maybe just for a short time in a year, and then not for a year again. So they really need to make things easy for them to use and also to reuse. When we look at digitalization, it just makes it much more difficult for them to manage all things if you think of what has all to be connected to work together. And it's getting more complex with IoT coming in, drones, satellites, and most likely more to come. We have some, I would say, innovative farms that show the challenges that we face. So we have, for example, one farm having 15 sites. How will he manage in the future the different barns, their fields, their potatoes, so specialty crops? So there's a lot to be managed, which is not what we have seen in the past on farms, like having one site and then being managed by a family. So it's more and much more complex operations. Now these farms that we see, they use a lot of tools. So this is just one case. We have 7 tools here to be managed on one farm, and those 7 tools, they actually need to talk to each other somehow or need to be brought together by the farmer. And that's kind of a lot of work for them to stay on top of things and of everything and of every tool. So think about the interfaces maybe changing slightly, buttons changing, whatever. So for them is a lot of work to stay up on things, also in digitalization, so that they can use the tools they really want to use. Now this reminds me what happened in agriculture in other areas. So thinking of machinery, mechanics. So we have the 3-pot lifter, where we have some standardization. And when we talk standardization, you have several possibilities. You can force everyone to use yours. You can kind of rework everything to do it, or you can try to create an open standard. And that's obviously what we're trying to do. And that's also what 3-point lifter or the hitch or whatever you have is there. And you already heard it. There are different versions of such open source tools in different countries, but looking at mechanics, and I think that's also going to happen in the web at a certain place. And I think that's why it's also good to have different initiatives. Now, how is stuff looking at the web? And we know this, different tools talking to each other. And I think that's what we also have to get done in the agricultural world, that things are talking to each other through APIs. And yeah, that's also what farmers are expecting from us. So not the 7 tools to be in one, but the 7 tools to actually work together. There are different technologies to do that, to actually have APIs, to follow up on them, to have the versioning and everything done. So that's also what we try to use. And things need to become much easier to handle. I mean, I just put here an example. How it's done today, you actually play your file onto the terminal, then the next step, you have to import it, then it's kind of reworked that it works on the terminal, and there's more steps to come so that you can start the task. And I'm using the technology myself. Probably I have to click about 5 or 6 buttons till I can start, yeah, many times you just forget one. So what we look for is to simplify this. You can start, you drive to the field, push a big green button, spray boom unfolds, driving path is loaded, is activated, quantities are on, you just start, you just drive. And that's what we want to enable, and that's why we also came to this more AppEngine and app approach, like architecture and also products that we want to see in the future, so that farmers get things easy and manageable, so that you can put a driver on a tractor that oversees activities, but that doesn't need to be schooled for a week until he fully gets the understanding on how to use things. This is the network that we want to build because of that. So we have the cloud aspects, we have the service registry in the center, and then also the AppEngine on the machines that shall enable those things and make things easier. This shall prepare for new solutions. There's one here on the left side which shows you more where you have regional issues. So we have these disease forecast tools. We bring in new aspects there with remote sensing. So again, new data comes in. And then based on this, we could start spraying. And this you see to the right, we even have applications we look at where you have drones flying that actually see not only diseases, but infections. And as you know, also with humans, you can react much better to things when you act, when you even don't feel it at the moment. So for example, you get sick, you put a lot of vitamin C, you might not get sick at all. So that we actually can go into such technologies and enable them, make them easy. And this is just with today's state of art, it's not doable. And that's what we want the Atlas architecture to be ready for, because these are actually innovations that companies are working on together with farmers. And yeah, I think that's kind of the future we're looking at. Another real case, I would say, is this one here. It's what ETH and other members have been looking into in a big European project called Flourish. It has been finished some months ago. So we have robots in a field that work with UAVs and actually look for places to act, and a architecture for interoperability should also be ready for this, so that you can have a robot in a field. It can be a tractor that is driving. You have a drone flying next to it, capturing data, guiding the ground vehicle. So things to become easy, even if it's completely new and latest technologies, that's what we should look for to make farmers' jobs easier. And then last but not least, this has to go up to the food value chain. And this is what a lot of people forget. Farmers don't usually. I mean, finally, someone needs to pay the price. And in most cases, it ends up on the consumer's plate. So somehow we have to generate more value in the consumer markets or from consumers. And this we can reach through looking better for the environment, doing waste limitations, increasing food quality, and also the whole traceability. So to bring closer consumers and the AgBiz, and for this also a lot has to be much easier and more interoperable, so that we can actually have a higher return in agriculture. And I think digitalization can help a lot to actually do this. And that's also why in Atlas we look into working with Nestle and other big food producers to actually also get closer to consumers. That's it. Thanks a lot from my side.
Great, Peter. Thank you very, very much for that. Really informative So now we're just going to move on to the pilot activities with DEMETER and ATLAS. First up, we have Mark Hoffman from Fraunhofer. And he's been employed at Fraunhofer as a research associate since September 2015. He's graduated from the University of Mathematics, a master's degree, having focused on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and computer vision. Mark's talk will focus today on a livestock monitoring system that is being developed within the scope of ATLAS, with the intended goals of improving the work of livestock farmers and improving animal welfare. Mark?
Thank you for the introduction. Can everyone see my screen?
I can hear you, and we can see your screen, but not in presenter's mode.
Yes, okay.
Great, perfect.
Okay, yes, I'm going to talk about the behavioral analysis and monitoring of livestock. Now, for the goals and motivation behind livestock monitoring is, of course, to ease the workload for the farmers, because they have nowadays they have a very large number of animals, some farmers, and they need to supervise them personally, and so it would be desirable to automate this process. And of course, to increase the animal welfare. So the main points are detection of diseases and detecting potentially harmful behavior. So we have we already went to several of our pilot sites in last year, and we discussed the requirements for our use cases with the farmers. So the requirement for the monitoring systems are first scalability, because as I said, the farms can have a very large number of livestock and a large number of barns and pens or boxes in these barns. The system needs to be affordable, so the cost per barn, per pen, and of course also per animal should be kept low, so that the farmer can expect to return a profit. And there's also environmental conditions such as high humidity and temperature in the barns, but of course also darkness and different lighting conditions that the sensors have to record for. And one point that was very important to the farmers was also privacy. So in the case of video surveillance, they want the ability to switch off the recording at any time. And according to these requirements, we chose the following hardware setup for our first pilot. And so we are going to use IP infrared cameras. These can also see in the dark. We try to keep the price between 50 and 100 euros for our first demonstrator. They are going to be powered over Ethernet. This makes it easier to connect the cameras. And they have IP66 environmental protection against humidity and temperature. We're also going to install a processing unit on the site. This is going to be based on a Raspberry Pi, connected to a hard drive for storing videos locally, because the internet is not very, because they do not have a very high bandwidth. We are going to store videos locally temporarily and then push them over the internet at certain times only. And yes, as I said, since the farmers wanted a way to stop the recording, we are going to include a physical on-off switch for the recording. Yes, and as I said, they are connected over, the sensors are connected over Ethernet to the processing unit, and the processing unit is connected to the internet. As for the software on the processing unit, there is a video recording app, which we call a companion app to our data storage service. And this will regularly upload the video data based on a schedule. The video data storage service is a remote file server located at Fraunhofer EAS. And it will give access to other services based on subscription and also notify them once new videos are available. Then we're going to have a second service, which is the processing service. This will fetch the videos from the storage service as they arrive, and it will analyze them and send the results back to the user somehow. For example, this could be to an agricultural software, or for our first demonstrator, we are going to implement some kind of web-based dashboard so the farmers can have the data visualized. This is an overview of the whole system. You can see the setup we're going to do on the farm with the cameras connected to the Raspberry Pi. This is going to be our first use case where we use the service and interoperability architecture. So the Raspberry Pi is going to run the ATLAS AppEngine, and it's going to be paired with the video data storage service via the service registry, and also the storage service and the remote processing service are also going to communicate via our API. Yes, and for the behavioral analysis itself, this is something we have not started, but we have looked at the existing solutions, and this basically the motivation behind this. So we want to measure the activity of the animals. How active are they? How active are they in different areas of the barn? Because the cameras are fixed, you can even see when they might be feeding based on their position in the barn. And of course, how does the food and climate in the barn influence the activity of the animals? And then what we want to eventually do is, of course, anomaly detection, which means learning the normal animal behavior or activity, and then detecting deviations from that to potentially detect sick animals or aggressive behavior. As for the implementation, for the first demonstrator, we're going to have a simple activity measure based on the dense optical flow. This basically measures the amount of movement and the direction of movements across the whole video. Then once we have collected enough data from the pilot sites, we will also try to train our own convolutional neural networks for object detection and tracking. This is so we can detect the single animals, which is important for precisely detecting the locations and also having a more granular measure of activity per animal. And what I describe here as subject to research are advanced topics that might be out of the scope of the ATLAS project, but are definitely worth a look at. That is one for first the identification of individual animals. So this would include some kind of face detection for animals to identify an animal during its entire lifespan. This, of course, would be very useful. And this could be combined with something that the farmers told us that would be very useful to them, which is weight estimation of the animals just based on the video data. And this combination would mean that the farmers don't have to weight the animals and can better access their daily growth. These are some of the results that Stefan has already shown in his slides. So we used what was already available on the internet, some convolutional neural network that was pre-trained on the so-called open images dataset, which includes also pigs, for example. These are photos we took during our visits on the pilot sites. And these are the results of applying the neural network. And as you can see, it can detect pigs. It's better at detecting the adult pigs than the young pigs. And there's still some pigs that are not detected or some false detections. So we think that collecting data and training our own neural network is the way to go improve this.
Just 1 minute left, Mark. Thank you.
Yes, I'm already finished.
Great, thank you very, very much. On time and ahead of schedule. Thank you very much, Mark. And next we'll move on to Senka Javov from DNet and Tom Popovic. Senka holds a position of product manager for agriculture and is responsible for the development of AgroNet suite of solutions, maintaining a relationship with relevant stakeholders and clients. And Tom holds the position of assistant professor at the University of Donja Gorica, I think I pronounced that okay, and teaches computer science and information systems design courses. Senka and Tama will talk today about a pilot project focusing on monitoring on-farm and post-farm activities in vineyards and orchards and poultry farms, thus providing data to enable a transparent supply chain. Senka and Tama, I can see your presentation.
Very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you as well, Tama.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. It is an honor to participate in this Horizon 2020 Agri Tech Research in Europe webinar hosted by DEMETER and ATLAS projects. In this session, continuing with the discussion about multi-actor ecosystems, we continue talking about piloting activities, and our presentation is called Transparent Farm to Fork Supply Chain. The presentation is prepared by partners on DEMETER project, and Ms. Senka and I will be presenting. The concept of supply chain transparency was unknown 15 years ago. As we know today, consumers worry about quality, safety, ethics, environmental impact in food production. They want to know where the food is coming from, how it was grown, if animal welfare was respected, how food was transported, and other issues. To be able to provide this information, it is necessary to monitor not only the production on the farm, but actually to also have information about what happens before and after farming activities. Next slide, please. On this slide, we can see the context of these pilots that we are talking about. And under DEMETER projects, we are running two types of pilots. One of these types is focused on what is actually happening on the farm, while the other one is looking more into the supply chain and its transparency. The pilots, there will be multiple pilots, and they'll be organized in 4 countries, namely Serbia, Montenegro, Slovenia, and Georgia. And they'll be implemented in vineyards, orchards with more than 2,500 hectares, and on poultry farms with yearly production over 1 million chickens. On the next slide, I'll ask, next slide, please.
Actually, I can't see our slides anymore. Oh, here it is.
Okay. So this slide is showing the approach to trustable food production supply chain. Basically, we are collecting the data related to on-farm activities from the fields and farms, such as pesticide usage, fertilization, animal well-being, medical treatments that may take place, various environmental parameters. But also we are collecting data about post-farm activities, thus being able to provide relevant data to consumers. To implement these pilots, we are using AgroNet, PoultryNet, and product password platforms provided by DunavNet. And then these platforms are being integrated and interfaced with the blockchain platform provided by Origin Trail, a company who is also a partner on this project, in order to provide digital support for transparent farm-to-fork supply chain. Next slide. Basically, we have started the implementation of these pilots, and I'll kindly ask Ms. Senka Gainov to take over the presentation and tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Tomo. Hello from my side. So we installed a range of IoT devices in vineyards and orchards to collect relevant parameters like temperature, humidity, rainfall, leaf wetness, solar radiation, and so on, and use these measurements as inputs in prediction models for pests and disease appearing, thus providing advices and support to the farmers in pest and disease management. We also did the integration with the FEDE platform and FEDE sprayer to provide actually automation in pesticide application. For the poultry pilot, we installed different IoT devices to collect environmental data, then operational data like feed and water consumption, chicken weight, and actually maybe the most interesting part of this pilot is collecting audio and video recordings of the chickens and use this to build animal behavior models and detect deviation from the normal behavior, leading to detection of diseases, some stress issues, reduced mortality, and so on. AgroNet platform that is developed by DunavNet is used as the main decision support system across all deployments in vineyards and orchards, providing data visualization and providing easy-to-use instructions to the farmers. Similar is with the poultry pilot, where we use PoultryNet platform as the main decision support system and provide complete insight into the poultry barn. The collected information, all collected information, is used to improve the overall efficiency of the farm and farm operation and on the operations in vineyards and orchards, and to gather evidence for the establishment of the transparent supply chain. What should be done in the future? It is the platform's integrations and actually collecting information from different farm management platforms about supply chain activities. Then we will use feedback to improve and validate the functionalities, especially those that are AI-based, like prediction and decision support. And we will be focusing on creation of tools and modules to enable transparent supply chain. To be able to do all this, we have a nice ecosystem of partners. We have experts in different domains from researchers to solution providers, service integrators, and service providers. We have one large agriculture companies and farmers association where pilots are deployed, and this ecosystem actually will help us in achieving the goals of the pilots. So, thanks for your attention.
Great, thank you very much, Senka. I don't think we have any questions at the moment. So our next presenter now is Karel Sharvat from Les Project. Karel graduated in theoretical cybernetics, and he is a member of the International Society for Precision Agriculture, the Research Data Alliance, and he was the president of the European Federation for Information Technology and Agricultural Food and Environment. He was the organizer of many hackathons, and the most important being Inspire Hacks 1 and 2 and MedHackathon. Karel today will discuss the multi-actor approach for the Czech farm cluster within DEMETER. Karel?
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the chance to my presentation. As you know, Les Project is part of DEMETER project, but although we have here other organization, Wireless Info, who is now involved also in smart agri-hubs and other activities. And I would like to speak a little more about now some movement in Czech Republic, because in last months we succeed to start to put together the group of organization which will be possible to involve in DEMETER and also other activities, and we are now building some type of innovation hub for all Czech agriculture, and there are a number of topics of interest. First is autonomous driving. It is also related with many aspects what was discussed today, like standardization, protocols, and other robotics. Other hot topic now is in our country, climate and water management, as observation and precision farming or precision agriculture generally. So here you can see the structure of our cluster. On one side, there is strong participation of farming sector. Probably you know that in the Czech Republic we have a huge number of big farms, and in there is a situation that 80% of land in the Czech Republic is in farms bigger than 500 hectares. So this gives the good chance for implementing different precision agriculture methods. On this side is the Czech Farmer Association, and there are some advanced farm who are participating. For example, Rostince farm, where we are providing a number of experiments. It is 10,000 hectare farm with 32 machines with autonomous driving. They use contour farming and others, so this is a very advanced farm. On the second side, there is now cooperation of number of the Czech research or top research organization. It is Crop Research Institute, Prague or Czech Agriculture University, Research Institute of Agriculture Machinery, Mendel University, Research Institute for Irrigation. So all these organizations are now working together. And in the center, we are now as LES Project and Wireless Info providing infrastructure and tools for all this organization to be, for example, possible for agriculture researcher provided ICT experiment with artificial intelligence with the tools and to offer this to the farmers. So Wireless Info and LES Project, we are now in the middle, and this gives us the good chance to validate the number of the technologies from the project. Other cooperation is more on the side of the technology. It is electrotechnical faculty who is now introducing the 5G technology, and also start cooperating with us commercial companies, Agri Tech, who is supplying number of the technology, including some robotics technology. So this is now structure of this Czech cluster, which is around our innovation hub activities, and the goal is to introduce more autonomous driving to improve situation on the farm, to increase adoption of the new technology on the farm, because what we recognize that many of big farms has already now the new technology from John Deere, from Claas, with tools for precision farming, but they are not able to use them, and they need to have services or organization who will help them, and this is now the way how we starting to work. You can see a number of projects around. There are some projects which already finished. It is a foodie project today was mentioned by Arne, the foodie data model which was introduced in this project and later expanded in the data bio, but there are also running projects like DEMETER, which is in the center. Smart Agri Hubs, I think that this project was today also mentioned, and other project is financed from Excel. It is AFAR Cloud, and the goal is to be able transfer this technological achievements from this project to, on one side, research community to be possible to provide more effective research, and on other side to transfer this result directly to farmers. I am now back. It was today discussed this what we are dealing a lot, and it is also now part of DEMETER project. It is this foodie data model. This data model was developed in two types of data model. One is a relation database. Now more and more is used and developed by Poznan Supercomputing Center, this RDF model, and the goal is to use this model as some integration model for sharing information and data coming from different type of activities like machinery management zone, sensors measurement, pesticides. this food data model, there are four parts. Mainly is used this core data model, which is focused on the farming, but we have also transport data model, sensors data model, and VGI data model. Here is some basic technology which is based on recommendation and which is now also included as part of DEMETER activity. So this technology will be in the center of this innovation hub and will be used and shared with both with the farmers and researchers. Here you can see also the part focused on some cloud computing, which is mainly based on Jupyter Hub, and there is a huge number of different analytical technology which could be used for development of new application. So this is shortly about our activity. We believe that DEMETER will help us to improve the solution, to integrate other things. And what I look also in last days on ATLAS project, we see now for our community as very interesting the tools from ATLAS focus on the interoperability of machinery data, because this is still now for us a huge problem. So I would like to thank you for your attention, and if there is any question, I am happy to answer.
So our first presentation is this afternoon is from Mariana Fraldi, and she's going to look at driving collaboration with open DEI activities. Mariana is the senior research in Telnaco-Menti with almost 20 years of experience in the agri-food sector, and she is currently partner in the Open DEI project, a CSA with the aim to coordinate and support LSPs in 4 chosen domains, including agri-food. Today, she is here in her role as ambassador of the agri-food domain and will present opportunities of collaboration both in the strict agri-food domain and in a wider cross-domain environment for finding opportunities, sharing knowledge, matching experiences, and learning from others. Mariana?
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen and I can hear you. Your presentation just needs
fine. Thank you. So good afternoon. My name is Mariana Faraldi from Tecnoalimenti, and I'm here today as a representative and ambassador of OpenDI project. OpenDI is a Horizon 2020 project. OpenDI is a Horizon 2020 coordination and support action financed under the call DTICT 13/2019, started 1 year ago, and which will last 3 years. The consortium is composed by 9 beneficiaries under the project coordination of IDC. In terms of the other partners, we have some associations as International Data Spaces, Fireware Foundation, Innovali Association. We have also an organization, HETEL, multi-stakeholder. We have 2 large integrators as Atos and Engineering. We have VT Aachen University, and Tecnoalimenti, which is a non-profit organization constituted under the form of a private-public consortium of 30 to the related companies. So here you can see that OpenDI is focused on 4 main domains. One is agri-food with in relation to the projects financed under the call DTICT 08 and 09, energy in relation to the call DTICT 10 and 11. Then we have manufacturing in relation to the call DTICT 7, and the health and care sector in relation to the call DTICT 12. Next. So the keyword for sure, which better represents OpenDI, is the keyword cross-domain coordination and support action. Next. So entering in detail on the OpenDI full ecosystem, I don't want to enter in detail into the single projects included, but just to give you the perception of the critical mass which is beyond our CSA. I mean more than 27 innovation actions and CSAs. Next one. Focusing on agri-food ecosystem, which is the focus of the webinar of today, you can see in these pictures two main circles. An inner circle, which is represented by DEMETER and ATLAS, which are the two innovation actions, large-scale projects, with whom we are in more relationship. And then we decided to open the ecosystem also to other more mature projects. For example, H2020, which is a very successful large-scale pilot as well, and the Smart Agri Apps and the AgiRobo Food. Next. The proposed mechanism of collaboration, I will present it divided into two different points. A collaboration into the domain, in our case into the agri-food domain, and a collaboration cross-domain. Next one. So for collaborating into the domain, fundamentally is the setting up an animation of working groups, intending with this term of working group, a stable group of people experienced in common issues, which discuss among them along regular meetings for making emerge opportunities. So people who sit on the same table, who through brainstorming or a discussion guided, moderated by OpenDI, can make emerge ideas, needs, requirements, lessons learned, opportunities. You have to consider in some way OpenDI as a support in practical terms for managing such inter-project meetings and material. So OpenDI can act as rapporteur, as owner, co-owner of repositories, mailing list. So a concrete support to such ecosystem projects. But as I already said with the previous keyword, the benefit provided by OpenDI can be for sure the possibility to match agri-food interests and needs emerging in this domain with those of the other domains and identify enlarged opportunities, which can be concretized at the end in, for example, papers, strategies, which can be shared with the European Commission. Next. Speaking about working groups, starting from a questionnaire circulated to the above-mentioned projects 1 year ago, we identified this one as the most interested for all the parties. So a table with all the coordinators, a table on interoperability and standardization, another one on pilots and use cases, another one on dissemination and open calls. Next one. But I would like to stress the concept that from collaboration into the domain, so starting from these working groups, we can move to collaboration cross-domain. And here I would like to introduce the concept of task force. Next. So we identified 4 potential task forces, one on data sharing spaces, business ecosystem, digital platforms and pilots, performance indicators, each one guided by an experienced partner of OpenDI. It means in some way to open a debate and collaborative work environment among cross-domains innovation actions, where OpenDI could validate its original knowledge assets, I mean platform, pilots, ecosystem standards, in close cooperation with the representatives of the 4 domains. Next one. So, entering in more detail, our proposal is that to have a common 6 months cyclic time plan for each task force. Starting from the working groups before mentioned, the idea is to identify one person who can be an expert on the topic, to put on the same table with the experts of the other domains, to discuss inside this leading community about specific task force points. It means to start with a kickoff meeting, to set up the objectives and the plan for the following 6 months, to have a monthly progress meeting for arriving at the end of the 6 months to a common outcome, outcome. You have to consider this outcome as something of really concrete, a position paper, a white paper, a joint paper to conference, a proof of concept, a communication material. The idea is to start with the first iteration very soon, at the end of this month or in July, for continuing for the following 6 months with, next slide, with the digital transformation data sharing spaces topic. Next one. OpenDI can contribute to these task forces also with practical tools, who is going to develop starting from November 2020 onwards. I'm referring to Pilot's dashboard, reference architecture for cross-domain digital transformation, and a benchmarking tool. Next. But will support also this cross-domain collaboration with organization of webinars. We already started with a series of webinars carried out in the past weeks, very successful, with an average of 150 attendees. Most of you who are here today probably attended some of these webinars, and we are going to start also with a newsletter for increasing awareness and support our initiatives and yours. Next slide. And now I would like just to close my presentation, introducing in some way the topic of next session, which is open calls. So we identified a possible collaboration among domains. All ecosystem projects who later on have open calls in their mission, and usually more than one cycle. So investigating in all the domains, we understood that probably a discussion on this topic can be of interest for all the parties. So the idea is to start now with the assessment of the open calls published in COVID-19 period, for starting a discussion among the parties where we put problems, knowledge, ideas together in a cross-domain working group, which can be stable in the future for facing such topic under different points of view. At the beginning, including only agri-food and manufacturing, and opening to energy and healthcare in the future. The idea is not in any case to substitute to the experts already present in all the ecosystem projects on open calls. The idea is to be a sort of green line on the topic for collecting questions, answers, European Commission guidelines, but also for valorizing winners of such calls, giving them visibility, and where required by the single projects, increasing the open calls advertising also through the website of OpenDI. We have already drafted an area specific for this. So I finished my presentation, and in the last slide you can find the contact for any information. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Mariana. Very, very informative. Now we're just going to move on to the overview of Cascade Funding and the opportunities that present themselves to participate or become new partners within these particular projects. So the first presenter this afternoon then is Miguel Conclaves from F6S. And Miguel is a European projects manager for F6S, which is the largest tech founder community. He connects founders to Cascade funding opportunities. In DEMETER, he is the open call manager and will present the funding opportunities the project has to offer to SMEs and to other institutes. Miguel?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Just to confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen. I can hear you very well as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'm very happy to join you and share with you the funding opportunities within DEMETER's project. So the goal and the purpose here on the open calls is to enable, in one hand, the extension of DEMETER's technology offer beyond concession partners, and in the other hand, to enlarge the outreach of the large-scale pilots by supporting the deployment of new pilots in different geographic regions. So that's why we have two open calls within the project. So the first one, called Developed, has the goal to enlarge the pool of agro-interoperable technologies by engaging tech SMEs. So we are not looking for consortiums here, we are looking for SMEs to integrate their solution within the DEMETER ecosystem. And this call should be launched this year, maybe in September. The date is to be confirmed, but it will be this year for sure. The second open call has a different purpose. It's called deploy. And the goal is to deploy geographic distributed small-scale pilots that demonstrates the impact and potential of DEMETER's approach towards the digitalizing and boosting European agribusiness in other geographic regions. And here we are looking for consortiums to implement those pilots. And this call should be launched next year. So I'm going to focus on the first open call to be launched, developed, and which is the main characteristic are to have a total budget of 300,000 euros to be split among 8 to 12 projects, SMEs. There will be a funding up to 30,000 for each SME, and we expect project to be run into a collaboration between the selected SMEs and the DEMETER's project for a period of 6 months. And we are talking about equity-free funding, 100% equity-free funding on this call. So, but please be aware that this could be still subject to change, but that's the information that we have defined now. And so for this first open call, and here is also subject to changes, but this is what we have now to share with you at this moment. We have selected 6 challenges that we want the SMEs to help us with. So the first one is crop selection. We want to help farmers to decide which crop has the best characteristic to be planted in a certain area. The challenge number 2 is soil workability and humidity. So here the goal is to help farmers to know if the ground is strong enough to support the weight of a machine and assess soil humidity after rain. The challenge number 3 is farm management information system enablers. So here we want to help farmers to deliver information requested by public administrations and also to increase their content and quality of the data that they get from their equipment. Challenge number 4 is agriculture hardware interoperability. We want here to help the farmers to make machinery interoperate and talk between each other, led by EaseOfUs protocol. The challenge number 5 is the blockchain solution. So we want to, when you know that blockchain can have a disruptive impact in all sectors, and agri-food is not an exception. So we want to help farmers to access a blockchain-based solution for agricultural applications such as traceability, commodity trading, machinery management, vehicle management, equipment management, etc. So we want also to have SMEs helping us on this challenge. And last one, challenge number 6, business process integration. We want to further help farmers take better decisions based on the data analysis from different data sources. So these are, for now, the 6 challenges. They may be subject to changes, but this is a starting point. If we have SMEs here watching this webinar, please take a look at this challenge. And in terms of eligibility criteria, we are looking for SMEs within the European Commission definition of SME. The applicants should be established in a European Union member state or associated country, and they should be working on the development, integration, and interoperability of technological products or services in the agri-food sector. There will be criteria, of course, to evaluate the applications based on the alignment with the project, the excellence of the solutions proposed, their impact, and the value for money that they propose on the applications. In terms of process and how to apply, there will be, the proposal will be submitted on the platform F6S, an SO3 process to submit your application. Then there will be an eligibility check at the end of the open call timeframe. And if the applications are eligible, there will be a remote evaluation made by the evaluators, an online interview, and also a consensus meeting to select the final pre-selections SMEs that then we will start due diligence process in order to start the signature of the sub-grantee agreement. And when we have that ready, that should be in February 2021, the work per se will start divided in the 3 sprints. So the all time frame will be 6 months divided in 3 sprints of 2 months each, and the funding provided will be also split between those 3 sprints. So 30% funding in the first sprint, 30 in the second sprint, and 40 in the third sprint. So please, as I said, there's a lot of things that can be fine-tuned. So please stay tuned to DEMETER's website and newsletter, etc., to be the first to know about the launch of open calls. Regarding the open call 2 called deployed, I just have one quick slide about this one. So the main characteristics, we have a bigger budget for that one, 700,000 euros. The budget could be up to 150,000 for each project, and we are looking here for consortiums. We will be able to fund between 4 and 8 projects for a duration of 12 months. And as I said, we are looking for a small consortium of 2 to 3 partners, representing at least one tech provider or integrator and an end user. And we should be opening this call in June 2021. So that is still maybe subject to change. So the main message here is and the diagram is more or less the same. So the application process will be the same. But please stay tuned to our communication channels to be the first to know about the open call opportunities that we are here presenting today. And I'm hoping for any question, I think, at the end of this section. Thank you very much.
Hi, Miguel. We actually do have one question for you, which is, are the research institutes eligible as full partners for the DEMETER open call?
For the first one, no. For the second one, we are looking for institutions, yes. So the first one is only for SMEs. The second one for institutions, it could be scientific institution, etc. We are looking for all type of institution. They cannot be part of the beneficiaries of the DEMETER consortium. So they have to be outside just because of conflict of interest. So if you are an education or a scientific institution outside the DEMETER consortium, you can apply to the second open call.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Miguel. Again, just to let people know that you can post your questions in the dashboard, and if you can put either Miguel or Tamara or Harold's or Sasha's names in front of the questions, so the person you'd like the question posed to. Again, we're just giving a quick overview of Cascade Funding opportunities, and the next presenter is Tamara Nejdinova from EZO. And Tamara is a project manager at EZO, and she has comprehensive experience in creating and developing innovation ecosystems. And Tamara has helped over 400 founders start and build their businesses with individual business supports. Within the ATLAS project, she is responsible for open calls and the overall coordination, and will present an overview of the ATLAS open calls. Thank you, Tamara. I can see your screen.
Yes, great. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, and I can hear you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Hazel, for the lovely introduction. Thank you, everyone. I'm very glad to be here in such a great webinar when you can hear about 2 projects at the same time. So I'm here to walk you through the information about our open calls. You can see some similarities that we have with the DEMETER project, but some differences as well. So I'm aiming to quickly cover a few very common questions we receive regarding our open calls. And first of all, what is the ATLAS open call? So we will have 2 open calls, and you already heard today quite some information about the technical part of our project, about the service architecture of ATLAS platform. So we are looking for innovative services and solutions that will be built on our platform and will be useful and usable by end users, mainly farmers and also other players in the agricultural industry. So you can see now the timeline of the first open call. The first open call is up and running, and the deadline is on the 15th of September. So we are looking for your proposals. And so after the database will be closed, the evaluation starts. Our experts board will evaluate your proposals in two phases, so to say. So in the second phase, when if your company is shortlisted, you will have an opportunity to answer experts' questions in a live session. And then we will conclude contracts with winning proposals, and you will have 6 months time to implement your solution. After the implementation period, we are planning a big event, hopefully offline event, when we present all the applications and all the solutions in our broad network. So who is it for? So we also looking for solutions that are submitted by SMS to be eligible for our open call. In other words, you have to be small or mid-sized enterprise and registered in one of EU member states or Horizon 2020 associated countries. So to see the list of the eligible countries, you can also register in our database, and that's a very straightforward way, or you can look up in the Horizon page. So why we think that our open call is attractive for you, why you should participate. We have several benefits, and the main of them are you will receive the EU funding. So the average cash contribution into your solution will be about 52,000, and you have to come up with 30% of your own contribution on top of that amount. So we are not looking for your cash contribution, so it can be any in-kind service, your time you spend on implementation of the application or equipment you already have and you will use for the implementation. So the entire budget of per each use case, we see 75,000. So you will also become a part and will benefit from our extensive network. You probably saw that we have 30 partners in our consortium, scientific partners, industry players, and end users. So that's a huge expertise inside our consortium. So you will become part of it, and you will receive a mentor that will help you to implement your solution, and you will be able to interact with end users anytime you need to, and you will have access to all our testing facilities and innovation hubs. Just one quick word. So as you see, we are aiming to fund up to 20 companies within 2 rounds. First open call is this year, and next open call will be also next year. Yes, so that's the conditions. So how to apply? We created a nice video, but I'm not going to show it today. So you can see it when you enter our web page. That's the first link. When you click the first link, then you will see all the conditions, answers to your questions. You can see our terms of participation and application template. Don't be scared by our long application template. We just broke down all the sections into smaller questions to help you to write a winning proposal. Also following the second link, you can directly register into our database, and you will be notified about and you will be notified about all significant information or messages or changes in our open calls. So we have 7 challenges in our first open call. The broad description you can find on the web page mentioned above. So if you have more than one solution, you are free to apply for to submit your proposals to many topics and challenges. But keep in mind that you are only allowed to submit one solution per one topic. So if you have a solution that might fit to several challenges, you have to choose one. Or if you are not sure to which challenge your solution fits the best, you can choose the last one. It's an open topic. So that's strange that I can't move on to my last slide.
Just 1 minute left now, Tamara, as you just have one slide left, right?
Yeah, that's one slide left, but I can't see it. Sorry for that.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry for that. Yes. Oops. Yes, basically that's very quick. You can see the preliminary schedule of our webinars that we created to address the most common questions we receive from the potential participants. So if you follow any of our channels or register in our database, you can receive invitation to this webinars, and you also are welcome to submit any of your questions via the email address you see. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions and also to your proposals, of course.
Great, Tamara. Thank you very, very much for that comprehensive presentation on the Atlas Open Calls. Next, we'll move to Harold Sudemaker from ATB. My apologies, Harold, from Smart Agri Hubs. He's the senior researcher at ATB Institute for Applied Systems Technology in Bremen. And since 1998, he has worked as a scientific staff member at ATB in consultancy and research projects. He's involved in both national research and international research programs, and his research interests relate to digital innovation, IoT, mobile, and collaborative work within the different business domains. Today, he's going to present on the Smart Agri Hubs project, and he coordinates the open calls for this. Thank you, Harold.
So excellent. Thank you very much. Welcome to my presentation. I'm very happy to present to you the Smart Agri Hubs Open Call. We are here for network expansion by open call and for digital innovation. And thank you very much to the speakers before me, especially about the projects DEMETER, ATLAS, and the challenges they highlighted. I think exactly those are the topics we are also addressing with Smart Agri Hubs. And when we are looking towards digital transformation or digital innovation in agri-food, of course, we are talking about what we are always saying about sensing, analysis, planning, and control. I think these are basic paradigms. And at the very end, what was also highlighted before, it's about decision-making of business and consumers. It's also about food integrity. It is about public decision-making, about different aspects which we are experiencing, even cross-domain, cross-sectorial aspects. And last but not least, about a bunch of technologies for being able to do digital innovation. Therefore, what is Smart Agri Hubs about? It's a project with 168 partners. What we want to facilitate, to support, it's about digital innovation in the agri-food sector, meaning we want to facilitate the setup of digital innovation hubs, of competence centers. How can we provide regional topical support in those areas? So I don't go on all the characteristics of the project, but also in Smart Agri Hubs, we have 28 innovation experiments, as we are calling them, to learn how to do good, what are the challenges in digital innovation. And at the same time, we're organizing now several open calls in enabling this. And in this perspective, we think the digital innovation hubs are playing a key role. And possibly you are not so familiar with digital innovation hubs yet. That's the perspective of a regional network offering service for digital innovation for the different target audiences. So I think I could talk a long time also just about digital innovation hubs, but just to highlight that, because therefore I was putting the next slide where I wanted to say, yes, we want to learn how can we really facilitate innovation experiments, on the one hand, regionally, via this perspective of digital innovation hubs, so that they are coaching innovation experiments. Innovation experiments, as well as also previously today was introduced by a multi-actor approach, bringing together end users, technology providers, and all the different stakeholders which are in this game. And at the same time, we have networks of competence centers, really about topics, aiming at knowledge transfer, and how can we really make such a network grow, work, and even build it up, expand it. And that's specifically the idea of our open calls. There are certain open call characteristics you have here on the slides. Our funding in the moment is mainly targeted at digital innovation hubs, while finally also towards SMEs, end users, and so on. But just to highlight here that it's about, at the very end, about innovation experiments. How can really end users and technology providers get support by digital innovation hubs, being coached by competence centers, and how can we make this work also on the long run? So that's the strategic objective. And the basic idea of us was to make 3 kind of open call phases, especially now with the background of COVID-19. We really more or less throw away our initial planning and really set up a completely new approach. And now we said respond, restart, and expand. So the respond phase is already closed. We had 2 open calls for this, closed on June 3rd. However, now in July, we are planning to open the restart and expand phases. Also a little bit with the background of COVID-19, and therefore now the restart, the system as we called it, it's for digital innovation hubs planning to realize hackathon type of activities like challenges or also datatons. And also there 20% of total budget of activities will be funded. So that's the idea. But I think for the sake of time, I will give you some references on this, and we have already there some documents there you can read about certain details. And also the expand the network. This is really for the, let's say, proposals offered by digital innovation hubs, which are planning to support innovation experiments. So that's the logic of those calls in principle, and that we can really learn how can we facilitate digital innovation in the regions via topics, and have a real network where we see also bridge, let's say, communication, collaboration over sectors, over regions, and over topics. Therefore, that's more or less the planning in the moment of the restart open call. It will, like the expanse, we are planning early July, at least in the moment we're still planning this. And then it will be opened until July 2021. So this call will be open 1 year or around this, and it's a continuous open call or continuous submission scheme, so you can submit your proposal whenever you think it's appropriate. And we are planning in the moment to have batch evaluation, so every month we are evaluating proposals, and based on thresholds to keep a required quality level, we will then fund proposals accordingly. So that is our current plan. While we must say the last open calls, as I said, we had the respond phase where we received over 110 proposals we received, and we're there in the moment currently in the evaluation. So in those 2 open calls, and we must say it was very good ideas, a lot of good proposals we received, and we're now really in the middle of the evaluation, and also participants and proposals are getting very soon some information on that. Coming to information, you see on this slide, you will see some outline of the latest open call on our website. Of course, the website Smart Agri Hubs is the place to go. There you also have open call documents, possibility to download them. There you can still download the respond open call documents, and we have a program document. This is a kind of like a work program, because we said, well, there we are presenting our basic ideas and strategies, definition, eligibility, and so on. I think just summarizing everything in one document. This might be an interesting reading for you if you would already to know more. And then we also have a question and answer section in the Smart Agri Hubs Innovation Forum. You can register there, just registering for, let's say, talking there with your email address and or with your identification that you can, let's say, post there some comments and questions. So if you have also questions after this presentation, please also go to the forum. We are also checking this daily, and we can also answer your questions there in the public. So it's a public forum, and there is already a lot of questions and communication done before. And last not but least, we also have webinars, resources. You can also go there in our portal to the training sections to learn more about Smart Agri Hubs. So thank you very much also to the colleagues from Atlas and DEMETER for organizing this webinar. Quite a challenge always. And to all of you participating in this webinar, thank you very much for listening. It was a pleasure joining here, and yeah, looking forward to further questions,
Great.
possibly especially offline then. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Harold. And I'd just like to commend you on the Respond call as well. It was a really brilliant way to mobilize the network of Smart Agri Hubs, and it's great to see that the numbers for those applications are very, very high. So well done.
Yeah.
Also, just to let you know that we're the regional cluster lead for Ireland in the UK, and as Harold said, I would encourage anybody who's a digital innovation hub, an RPO, or a competency centre to register on the Smart Agri Hubs portal. And Harold is very responsive there with regards to questions, but also any of the other open calls from Atlas, AgroBug Food, and otherwise, they're all promoted and published there as well at different stages. Thank you very much, Harold, for presenting. And we actually just do have one quick question, if you wouldn't mind. How can SMEs get involved in the call? Is that question coming in on your dashboard, Harold?
Sorry. No, I think, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So they're just asking, how can SMEs get involved in the Smart Agri Hubs open call?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. I must say, in the Respond open call, we had a pan-European challenge, especially for SMEs coming up with implementations. More or less, we organized a challenge. We're in the middle of this challenge. In the upcoming open calls, the restart and expand phase, there it's more or less in the second step, because what we want to have is we want to have proposals by digital innovation hubs that they are regionally organizing this digital innovation. And at the very end, it's also for SME startups, end users, technology providers and users, and they can provide their or perform their innovation experiments, as we are calling it. And therefore, I think it's key also to collaborate with digital innovation hubs. And that's also, I think, the place to go for SMEs and startups. And the digital innovation hubs can be a really door opener for collaboration, for learnings, for coaching. And I would recommend, especially in this phase of Smart Agri Hubs, that if you're an SME, a startup, and you want to do, there are some projects also in collaboration with this large team in behind Smart Agri Hubs. As I said, we are already from the beginning, we were 168 partners, and it's growing. And if you see there in the Smart Agri Hubs portal about the map, also the number of digital innovation hubs competence center is really growing, and we really appreciate it. And it's about networking. It's about a lot of people which are really aiming to support SMEs, also large organizations, large end users, small end users. So I think that's the place to go.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Harold. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to the last presentation. We do have one or two other questions, but I will put them to the panel for open calls, if that's okay, at the end. So our next presentation is from Stasha Stovak-Roski. I'm sorry, I apologize in advance, Stasha. I think you're the only surname that I was really stumbling with when I was looking at these names yesterday, so my apologies. She's from the Biosense Institute and she's involved in AgroGoFood. Stasha works in the Biosense Institute, focusing primarily on building the ag tech startup ecosystem in Siberia and the region. She's the deputy coordinator of the Horizon 2020 project, AgroGoFood. She's a work package leader for the open call management and regional cluster leader for Central East Europe in this particular project. In addition, she's involved in several other Cascade Funding projects that offer support to entrepreneurs and innovators in the field. And Stasha also manages the Biosense Accelerator for ag tech startups and works on establishing long-term collaborations between industry partners, researchers and SMEs. Stasha will present today on the AgroGoFood open calls. Thank you, Stasha.
Thank you, Hazel. No worries about the name. It tends to be complicated. So my name is Stasha. I hope everyone can hear me and see my screen. Thank you, Hazel, for the nice introduction. And indeed, I will be speaking on behalf of AgroGoFood. As Hazel said, I will be presenting the AgroGoFood open call, and currently we are involved in the open call on innovation experiments that is ongoing, but I will also give you a brief overview of the project itself. AgroGoFood is one of the Horizon 2020 projects that offers funding to third parties, and thank you everyone for inviting us to also present the possibilities here. The vision of AgroGoFood is quite ambitious. What we're hoping to do throughout the duration of the project is to establish a truly pan-European network of digital innovation hubs, but not just any digital innovation hubs. We are focused on those that are developing robotic solutions for the agri-food sector, that are willing to demonstrate the applicability of robotics in this field, and that are devoted to truly digitalizing and roboticizing this sector that is still somewhat not keeping up with other industries in the field. The concept and the way we see it is that the digital innovation hubs become one-stop shops with a portfolio of services and companies at close distance, meaning that if they don't necessarily offer a certain service, they know who to connect you with, and that these services truly enhance the digitization and robotization of the sector. We want to demonstrate the value of robotics so that those interested in applying robotics can truly see why that's important, how they can benefit, and what the outcomes can be. And we want to build this ecosystem and grow the ecosystem in that sense. But today the focus is on open calls, and as I've said, currently we have one going, but in total there will be 3 open calls in AgroGoFood. One that started on March, and we have an extended deadline due to COVID-19. The call closes on September 1st. Then we will have another one for innovation experiments, which will be launched in January next year, and you will have time until March to apply. And in the meantime, in between, we will have a call for industrial challenges that will be launched in October and finished in January. Since today I'll focus primarily on innovation experiments, just a short note on the difference. With innovation experiments, we are looking for consortia, and our set of topics is very broad as long as it fits into the agri-food value chain, whereas with industrial challenges, we will be looking for single applicants, and the topics will be developed together with industry experts. So the topics will be much more narrow, more as a case study thing, and there will be a stronger interaction with the industry compared to the experiments. So as we are already in the phase of receiving applications for the first open call, and you still have plenty of time to apply in case this is the first time you're hearing about this, or this is the time when you're considering this. For the open call on innovation experiments is 2.65 million euros. So it's quite a large budget, and we are giving up to €500,000 to the selected experiments. This amount is then split among the members of the consortia, so depending on whether it's 2 or 5 partners, and then there is also a limitation in the budget per partner that can be 50 to 3,000 euros. We will probably be funding approximately 6 projects. This will be dependent both on the budgets asked and on the quality of the proposals received, but these are some of our targets. What is the timeline? The open call started on March 1st, and now we're in the phase of collecting applications and answering all your questions. On September 1st, the open call will officially end, and that is when we will start the evaluation process. The evaluation will be a 2-stage process, so it will last for 2 months. This means that shortlisted candidates will also be invited for an interview with external evaluators who are doing the whole evaluation process, and then in November we will have information about those that are selected, and we will start signing contracts. The experiments will begin in December 2020 and finish in April 2022, so they will last for quite a while. And I will also talk briefly about the implementation timeline, since we're talking about agri-food value chain, and people tend to get upset about the winter season and summer season. There will be time to cover everything. Who is eligible? So who are we looking for? As I said earlier, it's 2 to 5 partners. The consortium need to have 1 end user and 1 technology provider at least. What this means is that depending on the role the different SMEs will take in the proposal and later on in the implementation of the project, at least 1 needs to be the one designing and developing the robotic technology, and the other one needs to be the one who will be actually using and showing how this technology is being used. You can of course have several of these roles and have a different combination. These are the minimums. The solution has to be based on robotic technology, and our take on robotics is quite broad. We have a definition on the website. It needs to address the problem in the agri-food sector as you see it, and one thing that we are trying to establish, which is now part of the eligibility criteria, is that you need to have contact with the regional digital innovation hub. So as Hazel said in the introduction, I'm, for example, coordinating the regional cluster for Central East Europe, and anyone from these countries should have a contact with me before applying in order for us to know what's happening and be able to support you in developing your application. Your idea, this is also a bit related to the later on evaluation criteria, not only needs to be on the topic as I described, but needs to focus on 2 important things. One is that it needs to be technically sound, and you need to show us the innovation in your solution, but it also needs to have a business side to it. So you need to have a business model that really shows a potential to enter the market. We are looking at the broader sustainability picture, with agriculture being one of the polluters, and we want to see this. We are hoping for a high and a diverse geographical coverage, meaning countries that are not already part of the AgroboFood network, and the partners who are implementing it need to show us that they are really capable of executing the task at hand. So what do you need to do? You need to go to the AgroboFood Innovation Portal and read all the documents. Harald also mentioned this for Smart Agri Hubs. There is a list of documents that are open call documents that can guide you through the process. Then you need to find your partners for the consortium. They need to either be cross-border, so international, or cross-sectoral. So for example, if somebody has been developing robotic technologies for the healthcare sector and now thinks that certain components could be used in agriculture, that would be already considered cross-sectoral. So either or, you can also do both. Then you need to start planning your idea and finally submitting all the documents before the deadline. Some of the documents you will find on the website are the cold fish, the guide for applicants, which is the most detailed and important document, the proposal template in which you will fill your application, and then these are some additional administrative forms like the SME declaration and consortium declaration, declaration of honor and bank account information. One thing I did not mention explicitly is that this call is targeting SMEs, so in that sense that is why we have all these SME-oriented documents. And just a few words on the implementation phase. As I've said, even though we start already in the winter or in December, it's not to worry, and you will have time for the proper agricultural season. First, we start with the design phase that will last for about 3 months, which is when you focus on your milestones and the proper process of your implementation of the experiment. Then you enter the 8 months process of develop phase, which means building the technical solution, testing it in the field, validating it. So as you can see, this actually gets you the summer and spring and even part of the autumn season. And then as that finishes and you have your results, you enter the market phase where you're more focused on entering the market, promoting your product, finding customers, and so on. Upon successful completion of each of these phases, you submit deliverables that are being reviewed by independent experts, and then once those are approved, you receive subsequent funding. So 30, 40, and then 30% of the funding is released. If you want to apply, you can either go to the AgroboFood website or you can contact me directly. I'm there for you for any questions. There is also quite a thorough FAQ section on the website as we've been updating it with the questions we receive. So don't hesitate to look at that. And if somebody is not potentially interested in applying for the open calls, there are other ways that you can join our network, such as joining the network of digital innovation hubs and competence centers, checking with us what services we offer, what services you potentially want to develop. There are different ways for collaboration, and you can find more information on the website, even an application form to officially register as a DIH or a CC. That would be it for me. I hope I didn't break the time, and I'm, as I said, at your disposal for any further questions.
Great, thank you very, very much for that, Stasha. Really, really informative presentation. And as I said earlier on, and as you had quite rightly said, depending on who is within your region. And so as an example, again, that we're involved in the Northwest Europe region in AgroboFood as well. So just reach into all of the different region contact points and they'll give you a lot of information as well. But there's a huge amount of information on each of these websites. I might just call back Miguel and Tamara. Unfortunately, Harold had to step out, but I just have two quick questions for each of the projects, if you wouldn't mind. Just bear with me just for 1 second. So maybe to you first, Miguel, if that's okay. Sure. Everybody just kind of get an understanding of how many projects potentially will be funded across DEMETER, and then what is the success rate on those particular applications. And I'll be putting the same question to Stasha from AgroboFood and to Tamara from ATLAS as well.
Okay, so in the first open call of DEMETER, we are looking between 8 and 12 SMEs to be selected. And on the second open call, we are targeting consortiums of 2-3 entities, and we are hoping to select, it depends, but between 5 and 6 projects. And the rate of selected applicants, we don't know yet. We will see. I expect to have a lot of success in the applications, like other projects in this sector have been successful also with more than 1,000 applications, but we will see. We never know.
Thank you very, very much, Miguel. Tamara?
Yes, as I mentioned, we are aiming to fund up to 20 projects. If you find more solutions, more interesting solutions, and they will be within our budget, then we will fund a little bit more. So they will be funded into 2 rounds this year and next year. There hasn't to be the equal distribution of the project per each open call, so it might be 5 projects this year and 15 next year, and vice versa. So that's and what was the second part of what's the evaluation criteria, or
the success rate of the applicants? I suppose that's a difficult question to answer in the sense that you don't actually know the success rate until you know how many applicants you have versus how many projects you can actually fund.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah. So we are really looking for bright, interesting ideas, and yeah. So we just started. It's too early to say.
Perfect. Just one quick question as well, I suppose it's for all the candidates, and I will come to you then, Stasha, if that's okay. Startups, are they eligible to apply for open calls as well? I know we've talked a lot about SMEs. but I'm assuming they're eligible as well.
Yes, for Atlas, yes. Startups,
For the
they have to be registered anyways. Also agricultural companies, if it's farmers, if it's end users themselves, so we also welcome their proposals.
Right.
Same for AgroBoFood, and I would even say that the SME term is really broad in terms of how the European Commission defines it. So make sure you check the guide. I guess that all the projects have it somewhere, at least with a link to the SME guide of the European Commission, it all really depends on the turnover rate and the number of employees primarily. So many entities that are for-profit entities fall under this category.
Thank you very, very much for your presentations this afternoon. I'm now going to hand over to Kevin Doolan just to close today's webinar. Kevin, are you there?
Yeah.
Great, we can see you now.
Hello.
Hi, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Hazel. I'll be very brief because I know we've gone over time. Just want to say thanks to all our presenters. I think it's been a really informative day all around, you know, starting with details on technology developments and then looking at how we adopt and use those types of technologies, and then finishing off showing how other organizations can get on board as well. So we're not a closed shop. We're very much open to new organizations joining us. I think it was a very good event, and we look forward to doing another one in maybe a year or so. And thanks again, Hazel, for chairing. Great job.
You're very welcome, Kevin. So that will bring to a close then today's webinar on Horizon 2020 Agri Tech Research in Europe. I'd like to also thank Gonya and Deirdre for doing all the background work and actually bringing this webinar together. We've had a lot of content today, and as I said, it's all being recorded. But from my personal perspective, I have to say I think it's a really, really exciting period of time ahead for agri-tech research right across Europe, and it's definitely something that everybody should be really watching and watching through different projects like Smart Agri Hubs as well. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you all in the next webinar. Thank you very, very much.